Welcome to Bedtime Biology, where science slows down and nature whispers you to sleep. Take time to find a comfortable position as you let the outside world fade away. Let it recede as you bring your attention to the present moment. Settle in, relax, and let's begin. Let your eyes close for a moment, and let the ordinary weight of the day settle quietly behind you. Picture the open surface of a deep, cool sea, just as the last color drains slowly out of an evening sky. The water below has turned a dense, endless blue-black, and somewhere beneath that darkening surface, moving with a slow, unhurried sweep of its tail from side to side, a great white shark glides forward through open water, exactly the way sharks, in one form or another, have been gliding through this same ocean for an almost unimaginable span of time. Picture her clearly for a moment, the way you might picture an old, familiar photograph. A long, torpedo-shaped body, thick through the middle and tapering smoothly toward both ends. Powerful, crescent-shaped pectoral fins held out to either side like a pair of quiet, steady wings. A tall, triangular dorsal fin, the same silhouette that has become, for better or worse, one of the most instantly recognizable shapes in the entire animal kingdom. And beneath it all, a body built with a patience and efficiency that 400 million years of refinement have quietly perfected. We're going to spend the next 2 hours together in her quiet, patient company, and in the company of many of her relatives scattered across nearly every ocean on this planet, from sunlit shallow reefs to the permanent darkness of the deepest trenches. Not to fear her, and not to reduce her to the simple, menacing shape so much of popular imagination has settled on, but simply to move alongside her for a while, unhurried, through darkness, and eventually back into morning light again. There is nowhere else either of us needs to be right now. Let your breathing slow, settling into something closer to her own steady, patient rhythm, moving forward through the water with no particular urgency at all, simply because moving forward is, for many sharks, the quiet, constant business of staying alive. Wherever you're resting right now, let your whole body soften a little further into whatever is supporting you, the mattress, the pillow, the quiet weight of a blanket settled over you. This is a night for resting, nothing more, and everything we explore together over the next 2 hours is simply here to keep you gentle, unhurried company while sleep finds its own way to you. Sharks are older than almost anything else you could possibly compare them to. The very first shark-like creatures appeared in Earth's oceans more than 400 million years ago, a span of time so vast it's worth sitting with for a moment. Sharks were already patrolling ancient seas before the first trees had evolved anywhere on land. They were already here, in recognizable form, before the first dinosaurs took their first steps, and they continued swimming through 4 separate mass extinction events that eliminated the vast majority of other species alive at each of those moments, including, eventually, the dinosaurs themselves. While so much else on this planet has come and gone, reshaped by ice ages and shifting continents, this same basic, elegant design, a streamlined body built almost entirely around efficient, patient hunting, has continued working, generation after generation, for a genuinely staggering length of time. Consider what that timeline actually means, set against everything else you might think of as ancient. The Sahara Desert, the Rocky Mountains, the Grand Canyon, all of it formed and reshaped long after sharks had already settled into recognizable versions of the shapes we know today. Entire continents drifted apart and collided again. Entire climates shifted from tropical to frozen and back again. And through all of it, this same essential body plan, cartilage rather than bone, rows of replaceable teeth, a keen electrical sense built into the very structure of the skull, continued quietly proving itself, generation after generation, need after need. Today, that same ancient design lives on in more than 500 distinct species, ranging from creatures small enough to rest comfortably in the palm of one hand to others larger than a school bus, spread across nearly every ocean environment this planet has to offer: sunlit tropical reefs, cold temperate coastlines, the open expanse of the deep blue sea, and depths so far below the surface that no sunlight has ever reached them at all. That same diversity extends into genuinely surprising corners of the world too, considerably further from any tropical reef than most people would ever expect a shark to comfortably venture. Certain species have been documented in the cold, dark waters beneath Arctic ice, and others patrol depths so far below the surface that they've been recorded well past 3,000 meters down, environments where crushing pressure and near-freezing temperatures would overwhelm almost any other vertebrate animal alive today. Across that same extraordinary range of habitats, the basic shark body plan has proven itself remarkably adaptable, modified again and again in ways we'll explore throughout tonight's journey, yet never once abandoned entirely in favor of some completely different underlying design. Watch our great white move now, and notice something that sets her apart immediately from nearly every bony fish sharing the same water around her. Her entire skeleton is built not from bone at all, but from cartilage, the same flexible, lightweight material that shapes the tip of your own nose or the outer curve of your ear. That cartilage skeleton is considerably lighter than bone would be, and remarkably flexible too, allowing her whole body to bend and flex through the water with an efficiency a rigid, bony skeleton could never quite match. This entire group of animals, sharks, along with their close relatives the rays and skates, belong to a broader class scientists call chondrichthyes, literally meaning cartilage fish, a distinction that separates them cleanly from the far more numerous bony fish sharing the same oceans. That single structural difference, cartilage instead of bone, ripples outward into nearly everything else about how a shark's body works, how she heals from injury, how her body remains buoyant, even how her own teeth are anchored, not fused directly into bone the way ours are, but held instead within the surrounding gum tissue and skin, part of why she can shed and replace them so readily throughout her life. Because she has no swim bladder, the gas-filled organ many bony fish rely on to control their own buoyancy, our great white instead depends on an enormous liver, rich with a particular kind of low-density oil, to help keep her from sinking. That same liver can account for a genuinely significant portion of her entire body weight, an enormous internal reservoir of oil doing quietly, patiently, the work that a swim bladder handles far more actively in other fish. That same oil, called squalene, has attracted considerable human interest over the centuries entirely apart from the shark's own use for it. Historically prized for use in lamp oil and machinery lubricants, squalene extracted from deep-sea shark livers has more recently found its way into cosmetics, dietary supplements, and, notably, certain vaccine formulations, where it serves as an adjuvant helping to strengthen the body's immune response. That same modern demand has, in turn, placed particular pressure on deep-sea shark species with unusually large, oil-rich livers, since these species tend to reproduce especially slowly even by shark standards, a pattern of vulnerability that echoes what we discussed earlier regarding basking sharks and their own painfully slow rate of recovery from historic overharvesting. Even so, that oil-rich liver only provides partial lift, meaning many shark species, our great white included, must keep swimming steadily forward for at least part of every day simply to generate additional lift through the shape of her own pectoral fins, functioning almost like the wings of a glider moving through water rather than air. Stop swimming entirely for too long, and a shark built this way will slowly begin to sink. One more small, quiet reminder of just how completely her entire existence depends on remaining patiently, steadily in motion. That same need for constant forward motion ties directly into how she breathes too, a method called ram ventilation, forcing oxygen-rich water across her gills simply by swimming forward with her mouth held slightly open, rather than actively pumping water the way we'll discover certain other, more sedentary shark species are able to manage later tonight. For a great white, stopping entirely isn't simply inconvenient, it would eventually become genuinely difficult to sustain. One further thread connecting her own steady, unhurried forward movement directly to the basic, ongoing business of staying alive at all. Let your own breathing slow a little further now too. In, gently, and out, just as gently, in your own unhurried time. Trailing along her snout and scattered across her entire head, hundreds of tiny, jelly-filled pores called the ampullae of Lorenzini give her a sense unlike almost anything available to us. Through these small, specialized organs, she can detect the faint electrical fields every living creature naturally generates simply by moving its own muscles, sensing a flatfish buried invisibly beneath sand, or even, some researchers believe, detecting the faint electrical signature of a heartbeat itself from a short distance away. It's a sense built for a world with no reliable light at all, useful in murky water, in darkness, in the final, closest moments of a hunt when eyesight alone would no longer be enough. Named after the 17th century Italian physician who first documented these small, mysterious pores without fully understanding their true purpose, the ampullae of Lorenzini remained something of an anatomical curiosity for centuries, their genuine function only confirmed through careful experimentation many years later. Each individual pore connects, through a narrow, jelly-filled canal, to a small cluster of specialized cells capable of detecting electrical fields measured in mere billionths of a volt, a level of sensitivity so fine that researchers still aren't entirely certain of every practical use a shark puts it to, beyond the confirmed ability to locate hidden prey and, quite possibly, to help orient herself using the Earth's own faint magnetic field during those enormous, ocean-spanning migrations. we'll discuss again a little later tonight. If any part of you is still holding onto the shape of the day now ending, let it dissolve gently, the way the smallest, faintest electrical signal dissolves into the vast, quiet background of the open ocean, present, perhaps, but no longer anything you need to track closely or respond to at all. Let's look a little more closely now at the particular shape our great white cuts through the water, and how much careful, patient engineering is hidden inside what looks, from any distance, like a simple, elegant silhouette. There's no need to hold on to any of these details tightly. Let them pass through your mind the way the current passes over her own skin, gently, without resistance, without any effort required on your part at all. Notice, if you can picture her clearly, the way her coloring shifts from a deep, slate gray along her back to a much paler, almost white underside. This pattern, called countershading, works as a remarkably effective form of natural camouflage. Viewed from above, against the dark depths of the ocean floor far below, her gray back blends smoothly into the surrounding darkness. Viewed from below, against the bright, sunlit surface, her pale underside blends just as effectively into the light filtering down from above. A seal swimming above her, or a fish swimming below her, may struggle equally to notice her approach, an entire hunting strategy built quietly into nothing more than the careful, graduated shading of her own skin. This same counter-shading pattern appears again and again across an enormous range of ocean life entirely unrelated to sharks, penguins, dolphins, and countless fish species, all arriving independently at broadly the same solution, a clear example of convergent evolution, where entirely separate lineages, faced with the same basic problem of staying hidden in open water lit from above, land on remarkably similar answers without ever sharing a common ancestor who first worked it out. When she does finally strike, often against a seal resting near the surface, she frequently does so with tremendous, explosive force, sometimes launching her entire body clear out of the water in a dramatic breach, driven by powerful muscles running the length of her body and a tail built for sudden, concentrated bursts of speed rather than any sustained, long-distance pursuit. That same tail, shaped in what's called a lunate, or crescent, form, works remarkably like the tail of a tuna or a swordfish, built for efficient, powerful propulsion through open water. Researchers studying this same explosive breaching behavior, particularly well documented off the coast of South Africa, have found that a great white typically strikes from directly below her prey, using the advantage of surprise and the sheer momentum built up during a near-vertical charge from deeper water, often achieving speeds exceeding 25 kilometers an hour in that final, decisive burst. More than enough to carry her entire considerable body weight clear out of the water in a single, dramatic leap. Genetic studies comparing great white populations across different regions of the world have revealed a surprising degree of separation between groups that might otherwise seem likely to intermingle freely across such a wide-ranging, migratory species. Sharks tagged and sampled off the coast of South Africa show measurable genetic differences from those studied around California and Australia, suggesting that despite her impressive capacity for long-distance travel, A great white tends to return reliably to the same broad region generation after generation, mating primarily within her own regional population rather than freely mixing across the entire globe the way her occasional record-breaking individual migrations might otherwise suggest. Researchers studying this same regional population structure have found it holds important practical implications for conservation policy too, since protecting great whites effectively requires coordinated management across each of these same distinct regional populations individually, rather than assuming a single set of broad, worldwide protections would automatically benefit every population equally. A great white population recovering successfully off one coastline offers little direct benefit to an entirely separate, genetically distinct population struggling elsewhere, a nuance that has gradually reshaped how researchers and policymakers approach great white conservation planning across different regions of the world. Whatever region she happens to call home, our own great white continues her slow, patient sweep through the dark water above us, entirely unaware of any of the careful, patient research being conducted in her name, entirely unaware, too, of the countless quiet nights just like this one that came before it, and the countless more that will follow long after tonight has finally faded into morning. There is still a great deal of ocean left for us to drift through together tonight, but there is no need to hold on to any of it tightly. Let your body rest exactly where it already is, heavy and unhurried, while this same patient shark continues her own steady, unbothered journey through the dark water above us both. Some time has now passed since we first found her here, gliding steadily through the darkening water, and there is still so much more of this same quiet ocean waiting patiently ahead of us. Let's continue drifting together, unhurried, into whatever the rest of this long, gentle night has to offer. There's no need to hold on to anything from these first chapters either. Whatever you've absorbed is already enough, and whatever slipped past unnoticed was never essential to begin with. Only the drifting itself matters now, and the drifting continues. Rest here, in this same quiet drift, for as long as you need to, before we continue further into the night together. Let your body stay exactly as heavy and unhurried as it already is, held gently by whatever is supporting you, while this same patient shark continues on ahead of us into the dark. There's nothing more needed from you here than exactly this, resting, breathing, drifting quietly onward alongside her. Just this. Only this. Rest. One particular stretch of water near Seal Island, off the coast of Cape Town, has become especially well known among researchers for exactly this kind of dramatic hunting behavior. A small, seal-covered rock outcrop surrounded by deep, clear water that offers great white sharks an almost ideal combination of abundant prey and open space for the kind of powerful vertical charge their hunting strategy depends on most. Predictable seasonal patterns of great white activity around this same small island have made it one of the most thoroughly studied locations anywhere in the world for understanding exactly how this particular hunting behavior unfolds in genuinely wild conditions. Camera crews and researchers alike drawn each winter to witness a hunting display that remains, even after decades of careful documentation, genuinely difficult to predict in its exact timing. Her mouth, too, carries its own quiet, remarkable engineering. Rather than a single set of teeth she must carefully preserve across an entire lifetime, our great white carries multiple rows of teeth arranged behind one another, like a conveyor belt built directly into her own jaw. When a tooth from her front row breaks or falls out, whether through the ordinary wear of hunting or simply through the natural churn of daily life, another tooth from the row directly behind it rotates smoothly forward to take its place. Across an entire lifetime, a single shark may go through many thousands of individual teeth, an endlessly renewing supply that never once requires her to visit anything resembling a dentist. That same replacement process explains why shark teeth turn up so abundantly along certain beaches and riverbeds around the world, fossilized teeth from ancient sharks having accumulated on the seafloor across millions of years, each individual shark having shed thousands of them across the whole of its own lifetime, long before ever losing its actual life. Fossil collectors in certain coastal regions can, with a little patience, find dozens of ancient shark teeth in a single afternoon, small, scattered testaments to just how many teeth even one single shark discards across the whole span of its own patient existence. A great white's own teeth continue this same steady replacement rhythm throughout her entire life. Researchers estimating a new row moves into position roughly every week or two under ordinary circumstances, though the pace can quicken considerably following an especially active period of hunting. Unlike our own single set of adult teeth, meant to last an entire lifetime through careful maintenance alone, a shark's teeth were simply never built with permanence in mind at all, replaced instead as casually and continuously as we might replace a worn-out tool, each one doing its job for exactly as long as it's needed before making way for the next. Those same teeth vary enormously across different shark species, shaped precisely around whatever particular diet each species happens to depend on. Our great white's own teeth are broad, triangular, and heavily serrated along both edges, perfectly suited for shearing through the flesh and blubber of a seal or a sea lion. Other species carry teeth built instead for crushing shellfish, or for gripping slippery fish, an entire family of animals whose teeth alone tell a detailed story about how each individual species chooses to make its living. Even a great white's jaw itself carries a remarkable piece of engineering entirely separate from the teeth it holds. Unlike our own jaw, fused directly and rigidly to the rest of the skull, a shark's jaw remains only loosely connected by cartilage and muscle, allowing it to actually project forward and detach slightly from the skull during a powerful bite, distributing the tremendous force of that bite more evenly and allowing a considerably wider gape than a more rigidly fused jaw could ever achieve. Researchers measuring bite force directly have recorded great white sharks capable of exerting well over 1,000 kilograms of force per square centimeter across their back teeth, among the most powerful bites recorded for any living animal, a genuinely formidable capability hidden behind what, from a passing glance, looks like a relatively simple, if undeniably impressive, set of teeth. That same jaw projection mechanism, sometimes described by researchers as similar to a spring-loaded trap, allows a great white to strike prey considerably further from her own body than her resting jaw position alone would suggest, extending her effective reach at the exact critical moment when precision matters most, before the whole apparatus retracts smoothly back into its normal resting position once the bite is complete. Researchers studying video footage of successful hunts have found the entire strike, from initial approach to the jaw's full extension and retraction, often completed in under a single second, an entire sequence of muscle, cartilage, and bone working in perfect, practiced coordination, refined not through any single lifetime of individual practice, but across the whole of her species' own patient 400 million year history. Great white sharks undertake genuinely enormous migrations too. Some individuals tracked crossing entire ocean basins over the course of a single year. One particularly well-documented stretch of open water in the Pacific, roughly midway between Baja California and Hawaii, has become known among researchers as the White Shark Cafe, a patch of seemingly unremarkable open ocean where satellite-tagged sharks gather reliably each year for reasons scientists are still working patiently to fully understand, some suspecting it may serve as a mating ground, others pointing to a rich, if invisible, layer of deep-sea prey drawing them there instead. Young great whites, meanwhile, tend to gather in entirely separate nursery areas along certain stretches of coastline, shallower, warmer water offering some measure of protection from larger adult sharks, including, on occasion, other great whites entirely unrelated to their own particular litter. Researchers tracking juvenile sharks along the coast of Southern California and parts of Mexico have identified several of these same nursery grounds with increasing precision in recent years, patient work that continues to fill in crucial gaps in our understanding of exactly where this iconic species spends the more vulnerable, formative years of her own long life before finally growing large enough to join the wider adult population further offshore. A juvenile great white in these same nursery waters feeds primarily on fish and rays rather than the marine mammal she'll eventually favor as an adult, her jaw and teeth not yet developed enough to safely tackle the kind of large, blubber-rich prey that will make up the bulk of her diet later in life. That gradual shift in diet, tracked carefully by researchers examining stomach contents and stable isotopes across sharks of different ages, offers a genuinely detailed picture of exactly how a great white's entire way of life changes gradually across the decades, patient step by patient step, from a cautious juvenile favoring smaller, safer prey to the powerful, apex adult hunter we began this whole story following earlier tonight. That same tagging research has revealed genuinely surprising individual journeys too. One particular great white, tagged off the coast of South Africa, was tracked swimming all the way to the western coast of Australia and back again, a round trip exceeding 20,000 kilometers completed within under a single year, a single individual crossing an entire ocean not once but twice, guided by senses and instincts researchers still don't fully understand, particularly given how little obvious benefit such an enormous journey would seem to offer compared to simply remaining in one rich, familiar stretch of coastline. As an apex predator sitting at the very top of her own particular food web, our great white plays a role considerably larger than her own individual hunting habits might suggest. By keeping populations of seals, sea lions, and other mid-sized predators in careful check, She helps maintain a balance that ripples outward through an entire ecosystem, protecting fish populations, and in turn protecting the health of kelp forests and seagrass meadows that those same fish depend on. Remove an apex predator like her from a coastal ecosystem entirely, and that same careful balance can begin to unravel in ways researchers have documented again and again across different coastlines around the world. Great whites themselves are believed to live considerably longer than early researchers once assumed, some estimates suggesting 70 years or more for the largest, oldest individuals studied, a lifespan researchers only began to appreciate fully once the same growth ring counting techniques we discussed earlier tonight regarding other species were carefully refined and cross-checked using additional methods. That same extended lifespan means a great white doesn't reach full sexual maturity until her early 30s in many cases, a genuinely long, patient adolescence that leaves her, much like the basking shark and whale shark will meet again shortly, especially vulnerable to any sustained period of population decline. A close cold water relative of our great white, the porbeagle, shares that same rare regional warm-bloodedness we mentioned briefly with the mako shark, allowing her to hunt comfortably in considerably colder water than most other sharks could ever tolerate for long. Found across the North Atlantic and scattered temperate waters of the Southern Hemisphere, the porbeagle hunts primarily schooling fish like herring and mackerel, using bursts of speed nearly as impressive as her mako cousins, and sharing that same distinctive lunate tail shape built for powerful, sustained swimming through cold, open water. Porbeagles have been fished commercially across parts of the North Atlantic for generations, prized for meat with a texture and flavor commonly compared to swordfish, a demand that, combined with her own slow rate of reproduction, drove serious population declines across several key fishing grounds during the latter half of the 20th century. Careful, sustained management efforts in subsequent decades have allowed some porbeagle populations to begin a slow, patient recovery, though researchers continue monitoring her numbers closely given how genuinely vulnerable her particular combination of commercial value and slow reproduction leaves her to renewed overharvesting. Female porbeagles carry their pups for a gestation period lasting roughly 8 to 9 months, giving birth to a comparatively small litter of typically 4 pups, each one already measuring well over half a meter at birth. Nourished throughout gestation partly through unfertilized eggs, the mother continues producing specifically to feed her own developing young, a strategy called autophagy found across several related shark species and offering yet another example of the wide variety of reproductive solutions this ancient family of animals has quietly developed across its own long evolutionary history. Out across the deep, open expanse of tropical ocean far from any coastline, an entirely different shark has earned a considerably more sobering historical reputation. The oceanic white tip, easily recognized by the pale, rounded tips marking her otherwise dark fins, was, for much of naval history, considered responsible for a significant number of losses among shipwreck and downed aircraft survivors stranded in open water, drawn by the same opportunistic curiosity that makes her willing to investigate almost anything unfamiliar drifting through her enormous, otherwise food-scarce open ocean territory. Modern shark researchers regard her as a genuinely curious, persistent, Though not especially aggressive animal by nature, her old reputation shaped considerably more by the sheer number of vulnerable people once stranded in her open ocean habitat during wartime than by any unusual hostility on her own part. Like so many other species we've discussed tonight, oceanic white-tip populations have declined dramatically in recent decades, her preference for open, largely unprotected international waters leaving her especially exposed to unregulated fishing pressure. One especially well-documented historical account, involving the sinking of a naval vessel in the Pacific during the final days of the Second World War, has become closely associated with the oceanic whitetip's own reputation. Hundreds of sailors left stranded in open, shark-inhabited water for several days before rescue finally arrived. Modern researchers examining that same historical event note that the exact scale of shark involvement in the resulting losses remains difficult to establish with full scientific precision decades later, though the event itself has, fairly or not, shaped popular perception of this particular species more than almost any single other documented encounter in modern history. One especially well-studied example comes from the eastern coast of the United States, where a significant decline in large shark populations was followed by a corresponding boom in the mid-sized rays and skates those sharks would ordinarily have kept in check. That same boom in ray populations, in turn, devastated local scallop fisheries, the rays feeding heavily on shellfish beds no longer kept in balance by their own natural predators, a clear, well-documented illustration of exactly how far the ripples from removing a single apex predator can travel through an entire coastal ecosystem. Before we leave this same open stretch of ocean, one more wide-ranging traveler deserves a moment of quiet attention. The blue shark, slender and strikingly colored in a deep, vivid indigo along her back fading to white beneath, spends nearly her entire life far from any coastline at all, drifting steadily across enormous stretches of open ocean using long, elegant pectoral fins that let her glide with remarkably little effort for hours at a stretch. Considered among the most widely distributed of all shark species, found in temperate and tropical waters across nearly every ocean on the planet, the blue shark has also, unfortunately, become one of the most heavily fished sharks in the world, caught in vast numbers as bycatch in longline fisheries targeting tuna and swordfish, her own graceful, wandering nature offering little protection against nets and lines that were never actually intended for her in the first place. Tagged blue sharks have been tracked completing genuinely enormous transatlantic migrations, crossing from waters off the northeastern United States all the way to the coast of Europe and back again, following a great, roughly circular current pattern researchers sometimes compare to a slow, patient conveyor belt carrying her steadily around an entire ocean basin across the course of a single year. Welcome to Bedtime Biology, where science slows down and nature whispers you to sleep. Take time to find a comfortable position as you let the outside world fade away. Let it recede as you bring your attention to the present moment. Settle in, relax, and let's begin. Welcome to Bedtime Biology, where science slows down and nature whispers you to sleep. Take time to find a comfortable position as you let the outside world fade away. Let it recede as you bring your attention to the present moment. Settle in, relax, and let's begin. Picture the open surface of a deep, cool sea, just as the last color drains slowly out of an evening sky. The water below has turned a dense, endless blue-black, and somewhere beneath that darkening surface, moving with a slow, unhurried sweep of its tail from side to side, a great white shark glides forward through open water, exactly the way sharks, in one form or another, have been gliding through this same ocean for an almost unimaginable span of time. Picture her clearly for a moment, the way you might picture an old, familiar photograph. A long, torpedo-shaped body, thick through the middle and tapering smoothly toward both ends. Powerful, crescent-shaped pectoral fins held out to either side like a pair of quiet, steady wings. A tall, triangular dorsal fin, the same silhouette that has become, for better or worse, one of the most instantly recognizable shapes in the entire animal kingdom. And beneath it all, a body built with a patience and efficiency that 400 million years of refinement have quietly perfected. We're going to spend the next 2 hours together in her quiet, patient company, and in the company of many of her relatives scattered across nearly every ocean on this planet, from sunlit shallow reefs to the permanent darkness of the deepest trenches. Not to fear her, and not to reduce her to the simple, menacing shape so much of popular imagination has settled on, but simply to move alongside her for a while, unhurried, through darkness, and eventually back into morning light again. There is nowhere else either of us needs to be right now. Let your breathing slow, settling into something closer to her own steady, patient rhythm, moving forward through the water with no particular urgency at all, simply because moving forward is, for many sharks, the quiet, constant business of staying alive. Wherever you're resting right now, let your whole body soften a little further into whatever is supporting you, the mattress, the pillow, the quiet weight of a blanket settled over you. This is a night for resting, nothing more, and everything we explore together over the next 2 hours is simply here to keep you gentle, unhurried company while sleep finds its own way to you. Sharks are older than almost anything else you could possibly compare them to. The very first shark-like creatures appeared in Earth's oceans more than 400 million years ago, a span of time so vast it's worth sitting with for a moment. Sharks were already patrolling ancient seas before the first trees had evolved anywhere on land. They were already here, in recognizable form, before the first dinosaurs took their first steps, and they continued swimming through 4 separate mass extinction events that eliminated the vast majority of other species alive at each of those moments, including, eventually, the dinosaurs themselves. While so much else on this planet has come and gone, reshaped by ice ages and shifting continents, this same basic, elegant design, a streamlined body built almost entirely around efficient, patient hunting, has continued working, generation after generation, for a genuinely staggering length of time. Consider what that timeline actually means, set against everything else you might think of as ancient. The Sahara Desert, the Rocky Mountains, the Grand Canyon, all of it formed and reshaped long after sharks had already settled into recognizable versions of the shapes we know today. Few other animals demonstrate quite so clearly just how little the concept of a fixed home range applies to a creature built, quite literally, to keep the whole of the open ocean as her own. Female blue sharks carry their own particular adaptations suited to this same wide-ranging, wandering lifestyle, developing skin considerably thicker than a male's of the same species, an adjustment that helps her withstand the same rough courtship biting we'll discuss again a little later tonight regarding sharks more generally, allowing her to continue her own long, patient migrations largely unaffected by injuries that might otherwise slow a less well-protected animal considerably. Blue sharks also carry one of the largest litters of any shark species discussed tonight, a single female capable of giving birth to well over 100 pups at once, born fully independent in the open ocean far from any sheltered nursery lagoon, each one immediately beginning its own long, solitary journey across the same vast, wandering territory its mother has spent her own life quietly patrolling. That same enormous litter size likely helps offset the considerable natural mortality young blue sharks face in open water, entirely exposed from the moment of birth to every predator patrolling the same open ocean she calls home. Time has passed since we first found our great white gliding through the darkening water above us, patient and unhurried, exactly as she has moved through countless evenings much like this one before. Let's continue drifting alongside her a little longer, and follow the many different shapes this same ancient design has taken across the wide, varied ocean she calls home. Let's drift now toward warmer, brighter water, closer to a sunlit tropical coastline, where an entirely different kind of shark moves through the world at a pace considerably slower and gentler than the great white we've just left behind. If your body has started to feel heavier against the mattress beneath you, that's exactly where it should be right now. There's nothing waiting for you tonight beyond this same slow, quiet drift alongside these ancient, patient animals. Let your eyes stay closed. Let your shoulders sink a little further into whatever is holding you right now. The transition itself feels gradual, the cold, dense blue-black of open ocean slowly giving way to something warmer, brighter, alive with the shifting play of sunlight through clearer, shallower water. Small fish dart in loose schools near the surface, and somewhere ahead, a shape considerably larger than anything we've encountered so far tonight moves into view, unhurried, enormous, and entirely unconcerned with anything happening around it. This is a whale shark, and despite the name so many people use loosely without a second thought, she is every bit a true shark, not a whale at all, simply the largest fish anywhere in the entire ocean. Fully grown, a whale shark can stretch longer than a city bus, sometimes approaching 20 meters from her broad, flattened snout to the tip of her own powerful tail, and yet, remarkably, she poses no danger at all to anything larger than the tiny plankton and small fish she quietly filters from the water around her. The largest confirmed whale shark specimens have measured close to that same 20-meter mark, though most adults encountered by researchers tend to run considerably smaller, typically between 9 and 12 meters, still dwarfing every other fish species in the ocean by a considerable margin. To put that size in some kind of perspective, a fully grown whale shark could comfortably stretch across 3 ordinary parking spaces laid end to end, propelled through the water by nothing more forceful than the same slow, steady, side-to-side sweep of her tail that every other shark we've met tonight relies on in some form or another. Let yourself sink a little further into stillness here too, drifting alongside this same enormous, gentle giant. There's no reason to hurry toward sleep any more than she hurries toward her next mouthful of plankton. It will come exactly when it's ready to, in its own unhurried time. Rather than hunting the way our great white does, chasing down seals with sudden, explosive speed, this whale shark feeds instead by opening her enormous mouth, sometimes more than a meter wide, and simply swimming steadily forward, drawing enormous volumes of seawater through her gill slits, filtering out tiny plankton, fish eggs, and small schooling fish along the way using specialized filter pads unique to only a small handful of shark species. It's an entirely passive, patient style of feeding, closer in spirit to the way a slow, steady vacuum works than anything resembling active pursuit. Those same specialized filter pads represent a genuinely unique adaptation found in only 3 shark species across the entire ocean: the whale shark, the basking shark we'll meet shortly, and the considerably rarer megamouth shark. Rather than the simple gill rakers found in many other filter-feeding fish, a whale shark's filter pads form a fine, intricate mesh capable of straining out particles as small as 0.5 millimeter across, fine enough to capture even the tiniest plankton while still allowing enormous volumes of water to pass through with minimal resistance, an engineering challenge every bit as impressive, in its own quiet way, as the powerful jaw and teeth we discussed with our great white earlier tonight. Despite possessing rows of teeth much like every other shark we've encountered tonight, a whale shark's own teeth are tiny, numerous, and essentially vestigial, playing no meaningful role at all in her actual feeding process, a quiet evolutionary leftover from ancestors who once relied on active hunting before this same lineage gradually shifted toward the passive filter feeding strategy that defines her today. It's a small, easily overlooked detail that tells its own quiet story of exactly how gradually, and how completely, evolution can reshape an animal's entire way of living, one small adjustment at a time, across countless patient generations. She can also feed in a considerably more active way when the opportunity calls for it, tilting her entire body vertically in the water column and rhythmically opening and closing her enormous mouth in a technique researchers call bubble feeding, gulping down dense, concentrated patches of small fish or plankton that have gathered near the surface. A behavior particularly well documented off certain coastlines where seasonal spawning events create especially rich, temporary feasts. Researchers have measured a whale shark's feeding rate during these same especially rich bubble feeding events at considerably higher volumes than her more typical, steady horizontal filtering, suggesting she's fully capable of adjusting her own feeding strategy opportunistically depending on exactly how her prey happens to be distributed at any given moment, patient and steady when food is spread thin, considerably more active and efficient whenever a genuinely rich, concentrated opportunity happens to present itself instead. That same flexibility extends to her broader feeding schedule too, researchers documenting whale sharks adjusting the timing of their own daily feeding to align closely with the natural rhythms of whatever particular prey happens to be locally abundant, rising toward the surface at dawn in some regions to catch a reliable morning bloom of plankton, or gathering instead under cover of darkness in others. Wherever the deep water creatures she also occasionally feeds on choose to rise closest to the surface each night. Across her broad back and flanks, a pattern of pale spots and stripes spreads out in an arrangement every bit as individual as a human fingerprint. No two whale sharks anywhere sharing exactly the same configuration. Researchers have taken genuine advantage of that same natural marking, developing photo-identification software originally designed to map distant stars, repurposed instead to recognize individual whale sharks by the precise arrangement of spots across their skin, allowing scientists to track specific individuals across years, sometimes decades, of patient, ongoing observation without ever needing to physically tag or capture a single animal. That same borrowed astronomical software works by treating each whale shark's unique spot pattern almost like its own small constellation, mapping the relative position of dozens of individual spots the same way an astronomer might map the position of stars scattered across a section of night sky. A photograph taken by one researcher, or even by an ordinary tourist snorkeling nearby, can then be compared automatically against an enormous shared database, often confirming a match to a specific individual first documented years earlier, sometimes on the entirely opposite side of the world. That same database now holds photographic records for tens of thousands of individually identified whale sharks, contributed largely by ordinary travelers who never imagined their own holiday snapshot might end up helping researchers track a single, specific animal's movement across years and continents. It stands as one of the clearer, more approachable examples of citizen science genuinely advancing serious research, an ordinary person's camera becoming, almost incidentally, a genuine scientific instrument the moment its photograph gets uploaded and matched. Researchers still debate exactly why whale sharks evolved such a distinctive, individually unique spot pattern in the first place, since the pattern itself seems to offer no obvious camouflage advantage in open water the way a great white's countershading does. Some suggest the pattern may simply be an incidental byproduct of pigment distribution during early development, carrying no particular adaptive purpose of its own at all, a reminder that not every notable feature an animal carries necessarily serves some clear, identifiable evolutionary function, however useful that same feature has since become for entirely different purposes, like the patient work of human researchers trying to track her. Whatever its original purpose, that same spot pattern has become, almost by accident, one of the more valuable natural tools available to modern shark conservation, allowing patient, non-invasive tracking of individual animals across their entire lives without ever requiring so much as a single physical tag. It's a fitting, quiet irony that a pattern possibly serving no original biological purpose at all has ended up serving her species so directly in an entirely different, considerably more recent way. Rest here a little longer beside this same gentle giant, however heavy your own eyes have grown by now. There's nothing left to track, nothing left to identify, nothing left at all beyond this same slow, patient drift continuing quietly onward through the dark water surrounding us both. Whatever thoughts remain in your own mind right now can simply keep drifting too, loose and unhurried, exactly the way this whale shark's own enormous body drifts forward, needing no destination at all beyond the very next gentle breath. There's nothing more to notice here, nothing more to hold on to. Just this same slow, patient movement, continuing quietly onward, exactly as it has all night long. Let yourself rest here, in this same gentle drift, for as long as you need to. However far this same soft, patient current has already carried you tonight, let it carry you further still, without any resistance at all. Despite her enormous size, a whale shark moves through the water at a genuinely leisurely pace, rarely exceeding walking speed for any sustained stretch of time, an unhurried, deliberate glide entirely suited to an animal with no need at all for sudden bursts of speed. And like so many of her shark relatives, she undertakes truly enormous migrations across entire ocean basins, tracked by satellite tag traveling thousands of kilometers between seasonal feeding grounds, following predictable pulses of plankton and small fish that bloom, briefly and abundantly, in particular stretches of ocean at particular times of year. Certain coastal regions have become particularly well known among researchers and travelers alike for reliable, seasonal whale shark gatherings, drawn by especially rich, predictable feeding opportunities. Off the coast of Western Australia, whale sharks gather each year along Ningaloo Reef to feed on a massive annual coral spawning event. Near Isla Mujeres in Mexico, hundreds of individuals congregate seasonally to feed on the eggs of spawning tuna, forming one of the largest known gatherings of whale sharks anywhere in the world. And in Cendrawasih Bay, Indonesia, whale sharks have grown accustomed to feeding directly from the nets of local fishermen harvesting small baitfish, gently sipping overflow from nets raised specifically for that purpose, a genuinely unusual, mutually tolerant relationship that has developed between local fishing communities and these gentle giants over many generations. In parts of the Philippines and India, whale sharks have similarly held a long-standing place of quiet cultural regard among coastal fishing communities, sometimes referred to locally by names translating roughly to gentle terms like friend of fishermen, reflecting an old, practical understanding that this particular giant, however large, has never posed any threat worth worrying over, and has, in various local traditions, occasionally been credited with guiding fishing boats safely away from approaching storms. Careful economic studies conducted around several major whale shark tourism destinations have found a single living, regularly visited individual capable of generating tourism revenue many times greater across her own lifetime than she would ever have been worth harvested once for meat or fins. A genuinely compelling economic argument that has helped shift local attitudes in several regions from viewing the whale shark primarily as a resource to be caught, toward viewing her instead as a resource to be protected and repeatedly, sustainably shared with visitors from around the world. For a long while, scientists remain genuinely puzzled about exactly how whale sharks reproduce, until a single, remarkable discovery finally settled the question. A pregnant female captured decades ago was found to be carrying more than 300 developing pups in various stages of growth, confirming that whale sharks give birth to live young rather than laying external eggs, each pup emerging fully capable of swimming and feeding entirely on its own from the very first moment of its life. That single discovery, made off the coast of Taiwan, remains one of the most important individual observations in the entire history of whale shark research, since so much else about their reproductive lives remains genuinely mysterious even now. Researchers have never directly observed whale shark mating in the wild, and pregnant females are only rarely encountered at all, meaning nearly everything scientists currently understand about how, where, and how often whale sharks reproduce still traces back largely to that single, remarkable specimen and the patient decades of research that single discovery inspired afterward. Satellite tagging technology has, in recent years, revealed one further genuinely surprising detail about whale shark behavior that had gone entirely unnoticed for as long as researchers had been studying the species. Certain tagged individuals have been recorded diving to depths exceeding 1,000 meters, far deeper than the shallow, surface feeding most people associate with this same gentle giant, suggesting an entire hidden dimension to her daily life that unfolds far below where any snorkeler or diver could ever hope to follow along and observe directly. Whale sharks are also believed to be genuinely long-lived animals, with some researchers suggesting individuals may live well past a full century, their exact age difficult to confirm precisely, since much like the sea turtles we might have followed on another quiet evening much like this one, the old method of counting growth rings has proven considerably less reliable an indicator of true age than scientists once assumed. More recent research using a technique borrowed from nuclear testing history, tracing radioactive carbon isotopes absorbed into a whale shark's own vertebrae during the mid-20th century, has offered researchers a genuinely clever new tool for estimating age with somewhat greater confidence. Though even this method still carries a considerable margin of uncertainty for an animal that may simply outlive nearly every method we currently have for measuring it precisely. Despite her gentle nature and enormous popularity among divers and snorkelers worldwide, the whale shark remains classified as endangered across much of her global range, threatened by accidental capture in fishing nets intended for entirely different species, by collisions with increasingly busy shipping traffic along her own preferred migratory routes, and, in certain regions, by targeted hunting for her meat and, notably, her enormous, oil-rich liver, valued in some traditional markets in ways not entirely unlike the historic demand for basking shark liver oil we'll discuss again shortly. Her own slow rate of reproduction, much like so many of the larger, longer-lived sharks we've met so far tonight, leaves whale shark populations especially slow to recover from any sustained period of population decline. Vessel strike in particular has emerged as a growing concern in recent years. Researchers using satellite tag data to map exactly where whale shark migration routes overlap most heavily with busy shipping lanes, work that has already informed voluntary vessel speed reduction zones in several key whale shark habitats around the world. It's a genuinely modern kind of threat, one her ancient design, so thoroughly refined against millions of years of natural predators, could never have anticipated needing to guard against at all. Let's travel now toward considerably colder, temperate coastal water, where a second, equally enormous filter-feeding shark moves slowly along the surface, its own enormous mouth held open in a way that once puzzled and unsettled coastal fishing communities for centuries before science finally caught up with an explanation. Let your own body feel just as unhurried right now as this next giant does, drifting slowly forward with absolutely nowhere urgent to be. If sleep hasn't found you yet, there's no rush at all. It will arrive in its own good time, exactly the way this same shark arrives, each summer, at exactly the right patch of rich, plankton-filled water, without ever once needing to hurry toward it. The water here carries an entirely different character than the warm, clear shallows we just left behind, grayer, cooler, often flecked with the particular green-brown tint that comes from a genuinely rich, productive layer of plankton drifting near the surface, exactly the sort of water this next enormous traveler depends on most. This is a basking shark, the second largest fish in the entire ocean after the whale shark we just left behind, capable of growing past 10 meters in length. Where a whale shark actively filters water using specialized pads deep inside her mouth, a basking shark relies instead on truly enormous gill slits, wrapping almost entirely around the width of her own head, lined with fine, bristle-like structures called gill rakers that strain tiny, drifting plankton directly from the vast quantities of seawater passing continuously through her open mouth as she swims slowly along just beneath the surface. The sheer scale of water a basking shark filters in the course of an ordinary day's feeding is genuinely difficult to picture clearly. Researchers estimate a single adult may filter well over 1 million liters of seawater every hour she spends actively feeding, an almost unimaginable volume extracted patiently, gallon by gallon, simply by swimming forward with her mouth held open, relying entirely on the sheer, accumulated abundance of plankton in especially rich coastal water to make that same enormous effort worthwhile. For centuries, coastal communities across parts of the North Atlantic noticed something that seemed, at the time, genuinely mysterious. Basking sharks would appear reliably each summer, feeding calmly at the surface in easy view of fishing boats, only to disappear completely once autumn arrived, not to be seen again until the following spring. Early naturalists speculated that basking sharks might spend the winter months hibernating quietly on the seafloor, shedding their own gill rakers and regrowing them again each spring. Modern satellite tracking has since revealed a considerably less dramatic, though genuinely fascinating, explanation. Rather than hibernating, basking sharks simply follow the deep, seasonal blooms of plankton down into much deeper, colder water during the winter months, continuing to feed steadily the entire time, simply far too deep below the surface for anyone watching from a boat to notice. That same tracking research, only made possible within the last few decades, overturned centuries of assumption almost overnight, a reminder of just how much even a genuinely large, historically well-known animal can still surprise researchers once the right technology finally becomes available to follow it properly. Some tagged basking sharks have been recorded diving to depths exceeding 900 meters during these same winter months, far colder and darker than anyone would have guessed possible for an animal so strongly associated with lazy, sunlit summer afternoons spent basking calmly at the surface. That same research has also revealed basking sharks undertaking transequatorial migrations. Individuals tagged off the coast of Ireland later detected in waters off Brazil, crossing an entire hemisphere in search of the richest available seasonal plankton blooms, a journey considerably more ambitious than early naturalists, still working under the assumption that this species simply hibernated locally each winter, could ever have imagined her capable of undertaking at all. Despite her genuinely enormous size, a basking shark poses no threat whatsoever to swimmers or divers, her entire feeding strategy built around plankton so small it would be almost invisible without a microscope. Divers fortunate enough to encounter one in open water often describe an experience closer to swimming quietly alongside an enormous, gentle boulder slowly drifting through open water than anything resembling danger. Despite that same gentle, unhurried reputation, basking sharks are also occasionally observed doing something genuinely startling for an animal of her size, launching her entire body clear out of the water in a full breach remarkably similar to the dramatic leaps we discussed with our great white much earlier tonight. Researchers remain uncertain exactly why a filter-feeding giant with nothing to gain from ambush hunting would expend the tremendous energy such a breach requires, though leading theories suggest it may serve to dislodge parasites clinging to her skin, or function as some form of communication or courtship display directed toward other basking sharks in the same area. A genuinely open question that continues to intrigue researchers each time a fresh breach is captured on film. Basking sharks share something else in common with the whale shark we met a little earlier tonight too, a genuine vulnerability tied directly to how slowly they reproduce. Females are believed to carry their young for an exceptionally long gestation period, quite possibly the longest of any shark species, and produce relatively few pups across an entire lifetime. That same slow reproductive pace, wonderfully suited to a peaceful life spent quietly filtering plankton from open water, has also made basking shark populations especially slow to recover wherever historic hunting or accidental bycatch has reduced their numbers significantly, a pattern we'll return to a little later tonight when we consider the wider, more difficult relationship between sharks and the people who share the ocean alongside them. That historic hunting pressure was, for much of the 20th century, driven overwhelmingly by demand for the basking shark's own enormous, oil-rich liver, prized for its squalene content in much the same way we'll discuss again a little later tonight regarding deep-sea sharks more broadly. Coastal communities across Scotland, Ireland, and Norway once maintained substantial dedicated basking shark fisheries, entire local economies built for a time around hunting these same gentle, slow-moving giants purely for the oil rendered from their enormous livers. As demand for that same oil declined with the rise of synthetic alternatives during the latter half of the 20th century, basking shark hunting declined considerably in turn, though populations in several regions have still not fully recovered even decades later, a slow, ongoing recovery that mirrors, in its own patient way, the very slowness that made this species so vulnerable to overharvesting in the first place. Modern conservation efforts tracking basking sharks now rely considerably on ordinary members of the public, coastal residents and boat operators encouraged to report sightings through dedicated citizen science programs that have, over the years, gathered far more data than professional researchers alone could ever have collected working independently. That same patient, crowdsourced approach has helped identify previously unknown basking shark hotspots and migration corridors, a genuinely collaborative model of research that continues to prove its worth precisely because so many ordinary people, simply by keeping their own eyes open along a favorite stretch of coastline, have quietly contributed to a scientific understanding considerably richer than it would otherwise be. Let your own attention rest here a while longer too, drifting alongside this same gentle giant, filtering the whole of the ocean patiently through her open mouth, needing nothing more from the passing hours than exactly what they already quietly offer her. There's no need to keep track of how much of tonight's journey still remains ahead of us. Time moves differently out here, in this same slow, drifting water, measured not in minutes but in the steady, unhurried rhythm of gill slits opening and closing, over and over, exactly as they always have. Let that same unhurried rhythm carry you now too, further and further from anything resembling urgency, deeper into this same soft, patient quiet that has held the whole of tonight's journey together from its very first quiet moment. There's nowhere else the same rhythm needs to carry you except gently forward, one slow breath after another, exactly the way it already has been the whole time. Rest here, in this same steady rhythm, for as long as you need to. Let it hold you gently, exactly the way it's held this entire slow, patient giant, for as long as she's been alive. Rest easy now, in this same held, steady quiet. A 3-road filter-feeding giant deserves brief mention here too, if only because of how remarkably late science came to know of her existence at all. The megamouth shark, a deep-water filter feeder with an enormous, rounded head and a wide, gaping mouth lined with soft, rubbery lips, remained entirely unknown to science until 1976. When a specimen became tangled in a research vessel's sea anchor off the coast of Hawaii, an entirely new species, roughly 5 meters in length, hiding undetected in plain sight of modern science until that single, accidental encounter. Unlike our whale shark and basking shark, both of whom spend considerable time feeding near the surface, the megamouth appears to spend most of her life at depths exceeding 100 meters, rising toward shallower water only at night to follow the same vertical migration of plankton we've discussed with several other deep-water species tonight. A habit that likely explains why she managed to remain completely unknown to science for so long despite growing to a size that would seem almost impossible to overlook under ordinary circumstances. Only a small handful of megamouth specimens have ever been examined by researchers in enough detail to understand her basic biology at all. Most of what's known about her diet and behavior pieced together carefully from stomach contents and tracking data gathered from these same rare encounters. Each new specimen recovered, whether from an accidental fishing net capture or a rare stranding, continues to add valuable, hard-won detail to a species that remains, even now, nearly 50 years after her initial discovery, one of the genuine remaining mysteries hiding within the world's oceans. Fewer than 100 confirmed sightings have been recorded in the decades since her discovery, making the megamouth shark one of the rarest and least understood large sharks known anywhere in the ocean. However far your own thoughts have drifted by now, let them keep drifting. This same slow, patient story will keep unfolding gently in the background, needing nothing more from you than the soft, steady rhythm of your own breathing, in and out, exactly as it already is. Rest here a while, drifting quietly between these two enormous, gentle filter feeders, one gliding through warm tropical water marked by its own unique constellation of pale spots, the other patrolling colder, temperate coastlines with its mouth held open in a wide, patient, unhurried gape, each one a genuine giant, and each one, despite its own considerable size, posing no danger at all to anything beyond the tiny, drifting creatures it has always quietly depended on. Not every shark shares that same unhurried pace, though, and it's worth pausing here a moment longer to meet two considerably faster relatives before we move on. The short-fin mako, built with a slim, streamlined body and a narrow, pointed snout, is widely considered the fastest shark in the entire ocean, capable of bursts approaching 70 kilometers an hour, fast enough to leap several meters clear out of the water when pursuing especially agile prey like swordfish and tuna. Remarkably, the mako shares something in common with our great white that sets both apart from most other fish entirely. Both belong to a small family capable of a limited form of warm-bloodedness, called regional endothermy, maintaining certain key muscles and organs at a temperature noticeably warmer than the surrounding water, an advantage that allows for the kind of sudden, powerful bursts of speed neither a whale shark nor a basking shark would ever have any real use for. That same remarkable speed has made the mako a particular favorite among recreational sport fishers, prized both for the considerable fight she puts up once hooked and for the quality of her own meat, a combination of factors that has, unfortunately, placed sustained pressure on mako populations across several regions in recent decades. Researchers tracking tagged makos have recorded individuals covering distances exceeding 2,000 kilometers in under 2 months, a pace of travel that underscores just how much energy her own specialized, partially warm-blooded physiology allows her to sustain across such vast, open stretches of ocean. Elsewhere in the same warm, open water, a considerably stranger-looking relative hunts using a technique found almost nowhere else in the natural world. The thresher shark carries an upper tail fin nearly as long as the rest of her entire body, and rather than simply using it for propulsion the way most sharks do, she deploys it instead as an actual weapon, whipping it forward through a school of tightly packed fish with tremendous, sudden force, stunning or killing several at once before circling back to feed at leisure on the scattered, disoriented survivors. Researchers using high-speed cameras have confirmed that particular tail strike can exceed speeds fast enough to create a small, visible shockwave in the surrounding water, one of the more genuinely unusual hunting techniques found anywhere among the many different sharks we've met so far tonight. 3 separate thresher shark species patrol different depths and regions around the world, the common thresher favoring cooler, temperate coastal water, the pelagic thresher ranging further out into warm, open ocean, and the big-eye thresher, distinguished by unusually large eyes adapted for hunting in dim, deep water, diving to depths exceeding 500 meters during the day before rising back toward the surface each night. Following the same vertical migration pattern we discussed earlier with certain deep-sea sharks, chasing squid and small fish that themselves rise and fall with the changing availability of light throughout each full day-night cycle. Let's drift now toward a rocky, current-swept seamount, rising up from the deep, dark water below into shallower, cooler shallows, where a shark carrying one of the strangest and most immediately recognizable shapes in the entire ocean moves steadily through the current above us. There's no need to follow every detail closely right now, if your mind has already begun to soften and drift a little. Let whatever wants to fade, fade. This same steady voice, and this same slow, patient current, will still be here, carrying you gently forward, whether you catch every word or simply rest in the sound of it. Seamounts like this one act almost like underwater oases, isolated peaks rising from the surrounding deep, dark plain, drawing currents rich with nutrients up from below and attracting an entire concentrated community of marine life that would otherwise have no reason to gather in this particular stretch of open ocean at all. It's exactly the kind of location this next shark seems to favor especially strongly, for reasons researchers are still working to fully untangle. This is a scalloped hammerhead, and the wide, flattened extension of her own skull, called a cephalofold, sets her apart from almost every other creature sharing this same stretch of water. That strange, hammer-shaped head serves several genuinely clever purposes at once. With her eyes set at the very outer edges of that same wide structure, she gains a considerably wider field of binocular vision than a more conventionally shaped shark could ever manage, along with noticeably improved depth perception, useful for judging distance precisely in the final, critical moment before a strike. Researchers studying hammerhead swimming behavior have also discovered a genuinely surprising secondary benefit to that same unusual head shape. Certain hammerhead species swim rolled onto their side at a pronounced angle, using their oversized dorsal fin much like an additional wing to generate extra lift. A swimming posture measured to reduce the overall energy cost of swimming by a meaningful margin compared to swimming upright, allowing her to cover considerably greater distances on the same amount of stored energy than her body shape might otherwise suggest. That same widened head also carries her electricity-sensing ampullae of Lorenzini spread across a considerably larger surface area than a narrower head would allow, essentially turning her entire cephalofold into an oversized metal detector, sweeping back and forth across the sandy seafloor in patient, methodical search of one particular favorite prey. Stingrays, often buried almost entirely beneath a thin layer of sand, generate faint electrical signals through their own muscle movement, and a hammerhead's widened, sensitive head can detect that same faint signal with remarkable precision, allowing her to locate a hidden stingray long before any visual cue would ever reveal its position. Once located, she'll often use that same wide, solid head to pin the stingray firmly against the seafloor, holding it in place while she maneuvers to deliver a decisive bite. Researchers have calculated that a hammerhead's particular head shape provides a meaningfully wider baseline for detecting the direction a faint electrical signal is coming from, not unlike how two ears spaced further apart help an owl triangulate the exact source of a faint sound in darkness. That same principle, applied here to electrical rather than acoustic sensing, may go a long way toward explaining why this particular, unusual head shape has proven so successful, appearing independently across several related hammerhead species despite the very real cost of reduced maneuverability that carrying such an oddly shaped head necessarily brings with it. Among the 9 recognized hammerhead species found across the world's oceans, the winghead shark carries the most extreme version of this same head shape, her cephalophae stretching so wide it can measure nearly half her entire body length from tip to tip, an extraordinary proportion even by hammerhead standards. Found across warm coastal waters of the Indo-Pacific, the winghead relies on that same exaggerated width for even more precise electroreception and depth perception than her more moderately proportioned relatives, though the considerable drag such an enormous head creates limits her to a life spent mostly in shallower, calmer coastal water rather than the more demanding open ocean her larger hammerhead cousins sometimes venture into. The bonnethead, considerably smaller than any hammerhead species we've discussed so far tonight and carrying a noticeably more rounded, shovel-shaped head rather than the sharply defined hammer shape of her larger relatives, has earned her own place in shark research for a genuinely unexpected reason entirely separate from her head shape or her remarkable placental pregnancy we discussed earlier. Researchers studying her stomach contents discovered she regularly consumes considerable quantities of seagrass alongside her usual diet of crabs and shrimp, and follow-up digestion studies confirmed she actually derives real nutritional value from that same plant matter, making her the first shark species ever confirmed to be genuinely omnivorous, a quiet, genuinely surprising exception to the strictly carnivorous reputation every other shark in tonight's story has otherwise upheld. That same discovery, published only within the last decade, required researchers to carefully rule out the possibility that the seagrass was simply incidental, swallowed accidentally alongside her usual prey rather than deliberately sought out and digested. Careful laboratory feeding trials, tracking exactly how efficiently she broke down and absorbed nutrients from a seagrass-heavy diet compared to sharks fed an entirely carnivorous alternative, ultimately confirmed real, meaningful nutritional value, settling a genuinely surprising question about an animal researchers had assumed they understood reasonably well for decades before this same small, patient shovel-headed shark quietly proved otherwise. That same finding has since prompted researchers to look more closely at stomach contents across other, less thoroughly studied shark species too, wondering how many other quiet, unassuming surprises might still be hiding in plain sight, waiting only for someone patient enough to look carefully at data that had, in some cases, already been sitting in a laboratory freezer for years before anyone thought to examine it quite this closely. Whatever quiet surprises still remain hidden within this whole ancient, endlessly varied family of animals, none of them require your attention any further tonight. Let your own thoughts rest now too, settling gently the way a shark pup settles into her very first independent breath, needing nothing more complicated than to simply continue, unhurried, exactly as she already is. The deep, dark water surrounding us both remains just as calm and unhurried as it's been this entire night, and there's still a little further left to travel before morning finally arrives. Let that same calm settle into you now too, gently, the way it settles into everything else, drifting quietly through this same patient darkness. Nothing about this next stretch of the journey will ask anything more of you than it already has. Simply continue resting, exactly as you are, and let the rest unfold quietly around you. Whatever remains of your own waking attention can rest easy now too, trusting this same steady voice to keep gentle watch over the rest of the story, the way a shark's own steady, distributed senses keep gentle watch over the whole of her surrounding water, without ever needing to strain or focus too tightly on any single thing at all. Rest here, in this same gentle watchfulness, for as long as you need to. Let your eyes stay closed, your breathing stay slow, and this same quiet darkness stay exactly as soft and undemanding as it already is. Nothing more is needed now. Only this same continuing, patient rest. Researchers studying hammerhead stomach contents have found stingray spines embedded in the jaw and mouth tissue of many individuals, suggesting this particular hunting technique, however effective, doesn't come entirely without risk to the hammerhead herself. A stingray's own venomous barb, its primary defense against nearly every other predator, appears to cause hammerheads only modest, tolerable injury, one more small piece of evidence suggesting this particular predator-prey relationship has been playing out between these two animals for long enough that some degree of tolerance has developed on the hammerhead side of the equation. One particularly striking specimen examined by researchers was found carrying nearly 100 individual stingray spines embedded across her jaw and throat, accumulated gradually across what must have been many years of successful, if occasionally painful, stingray hunting, a genuinely vivid record of an entire hunting career written directly into her own body. Not unlike the way a tree's rings record each passing year of its own quiet growth. Unlike our solitary great white, scalloped hammerheads are also genuinely social animals, at least during daylight hours, gathering into large, loosely coordinated schools sometimes numbering in the hundreds, circling slowly around isolated seamounts and rocky underwater formations. Researchers studying this unusual daytime schooling behavior have proposed several possible explanations, including improved protection from larger predators through sheer safety in numbers, and a more efficient way for individuals to locate potential mates within a species that otherwise spends much of its life relatively spread out across wide stretches of open ocean. Come nightfall, that same tightly gathered school typically disperses, each individual heading out on its own separate, solitary hunting expedition across the surrounding open water, only to return and reform the same loose school again the following day. A considerably larger relative, the great hammerhead, forgoes that same daytime schooling behavior almost entirely, preferring a solitary existence much closer to our great white's own preferred way of life. The largest of all hammerhead species, capable of exceeding 5 meters in length, the great hammerhead carries an even more pronounced cephalofall than her scalloped cousin, and has developed her own particular refinement of the stingray hunting technique we discussed a moment ago, using the leading edge of that same wide head almost like a blunt weapon to strike and stun a stingray before it ever has the chance to properly flee across the open sand. Both the scalloped and great hammerhead have faced especially steep population declines in recent decades. Their tall, distinctively shaped dorsal fins prized specifically within the international shark fin trade, commanding higher prices than the fins of many other species precisely because of their unusual, easily recognizable shape. That same distinctiveness, which makes the hammerhead one of the most instantly recognizable sharks in the entire ocean to any casual observer, has unfortunately also made her one of the more heavily targeted species by fishing operations specifically supplying that same fin market. A genuinely difficult problem for conservationists working to protect a species already burdened by naturally slow reproduction and a strong preference for exactly the kind of open, lightly regulated water where enforcement remains most difficult to maintain consistently. Several dive destinations built specifically around reliable seasonal hammerhead schooling, including certain protected seamounts off Costa Rica and the Galapagos Islands, have become genuinely significant sources of sustainable tourism revenue in recent decades, drawing divers from around the world hoping to witness the same large, circling schools we described a little earlier tonight. That same steady tourism income has, in several documented cases, provided local communities and governments considerable practical incentive to support stronger hammerhead protections than might otherwise have been politically feasible. One more example of how a living, swimming shark can often prove more valuable, in very concrete economic terms, than the same animal ever would be if caught and sold. The waters surrounding the Galapagos Islands in particular have become a genuine sanctuary for scalloped hammerheads, protected under Ecuadorian law as part of a much larger marine reserve, and researchers monitoring the population that have documented some of the largest, most consistent hammerhead schools recorded anywhere in the world, a hopeful sign of what sustained, well-enforced protection can accomplish even for a species facing serious pressure across so much of the rest of her global range. Let this same hopeful, patient thought settle over you too, wherever you happen to be resting right now. Recovery, for a shark or for anything else, rarely happens quickly. It happens instead exactly the way sleep itself tends to happen, gradually, gently, one small, unhurried step closer with every passing minute, whether you notice each individual step or not. There's still more of this same quiet ocean left to drift through together, but nothing here requires effort. Let your own breathing continue exactly as it is, slow and even, carrying you forward the same unhurried way the current carries every shark we've followed so far tonight. Whatever tension remains anywhere in your body can loosen now too, gently, the way a hammerhead's own wide, sensitive head relaxes once the day's slow, patient hunting is finally, quietly done. Rest here a while longer, in this same soft, settling quiet, with nothing left to sense, nothing left to search for, only the calm, steady stillness of a job already, patiently done. Let yourself settle fully now, for as long as you need to, before we continue onward together. Whatever quiet corner of rest you've settled into by now, stay there a while longer, exactly as unhurried as this whole ocean has been all night long. There's nothing left to do here except simply continue exactly as you are. Closer to the surface, along the shallow, sunlit edge of the same reef, A blacktip reef shark patrols the shallows in water sometimes barely deep enough to fully cover her own back, her fins tipped in distinctive black markings that give her both her common name and a striking, easily recognizable silhouette when viewed from a boat or a nearby dock. Considered one of the more genuinely curious and frequently encountered reef sharks by divers and snorkelers across the Indo-Pacific, she typically remains cautious and easily startled around people despite her frequent, close proximity to popular diving and snorkeling locations, generally preferring to observe from a comfortable distance rather than approach directly. Blacktip reef sharks demonstrate a genuinely strong sight fidelity throughout their lives, researchers tracking individual sharks returning reliably to the exact same small stretch of reef, sometimes barely larger than a few hundred meters across, for years at a time, rarely venturing far beyond that same familiar, well-known territory even when the wider reef system extends for many kilometers in every direction. That same strong attachment to a small, familiar home range has made her particularly vulnerable to localized overfishing, since a population reduced in one particular stretch of reef shows little natural tendency to be replenished by sharks wandering in from elsewhere, each local population essentially needing to recover largely on its own. Young blacktip reef sharks spend their earliest months in especially shallow, sheltered lagoon nurseries, sometimes water barely deep enough to cover an adult's back at all, a strategy that keeps them safely away from larger predators, including adult sharks of their own species, until they've grown large enough to venture into slightly deeper water with reasonable safety. Researchers monitoring these same nursery lagoons have found juvenile survival rates closely tied to how undisturbed and well protected that same shallow water remains, one more quiet reminder of how much a shark's entire future can depend on the health of one small, easily overlooked stretch of coastline during her own most vulnerable early months of life. A distant relative sharing this same general stretch of seafloor carries an entirely different, though equally distinctive, tool built into her own head. The saw shark, easily confused at a glance with the unrelated sawfish, carries a long, flattened, blade-like snout lined along both edges with sharp, tooth-like projections, along with a pair of sensitive barbels partway along its length, remarkably similar in purpose to those we'll soon discuss on the nurse shark. She uses that same saw-like snout both to detect buried prey through touch and faint electrical sensing, and to slash actively from side to side through a school of smaller fish, stunning or injuring several at once before circling back to feed at her leisure on the scattered result, a hunting technique that echoes, in miniature, the far more dramatic tail-based strategy we'll discuss shortly with the thresher shark. Despite that unmistakable resemblance, saw sharks and sawfish belong to entirely separate branches of the cartilaginous fish family tree, sawfish actually classified alongside rays rather than true sharks at all, a distinction easy to overlook given how strikingly similar their long, tooth-lined snouts appear at first glance. One reliable way researchers distinguish between the two involves those same sensitive barbels, present on every saw shark species yet entirely absent on any sawfish, alongside the position of their gill slits, visible along the side of the head on a saw shark much like every other true shark we've encountered tonight, but tucked instead along the underside of the body on a sawfish, closer to the arrangement we'd expect from her ray relatives. Let's move now into shallower, warmer water near a sheltered reef, where a considerably more sedentary shark rests quietly along the sandy bottom, tucked partly beneath a rocky ledge, waiting patiently for night to properly fall. If you find yourself already drifting in and out of these words, that's exactly as it should be. There's no thread to lose here, no story that needs following closely. Just let yourself rest, the same way this shark rests, tucked safely away, needing nothing more than stillness for now. This is a nurse shark, and she carries a genuinely unusual ability among sharks that sets her apart from many of her more actively swimming relatives. While our great white, and many other shark species, must keep moving constantly through the water in order to force oxygen-rich seawater across their own gills, a method called ram ventilation, our nurse shark can instead actively pump water across her gills using specialized muscles in her own mouth and throat, allowing her to remain almost entirely motionless for extended periods, resting quietly on the sea floor or tucked beneath a favorite rocky ledge without ever needing to keep swimming, simply to keep breathing. That distinction between ram ventilation and active buccal pumping represents one of the more practically important differences separating one shark species from another. Species like our great white, along with many open ocean hunters, are considered obligate ram ventilators, requiring constant forward motion to survive, which is part of why popular myth insisting that sharks must swim constantly or die actually holds true for some species while being entirely false for others, our nurse shark offering one of the clearest possible counterexamples. That same restful habit suits her particular hunting style perfectly. Nurse sharks are largely nocturnal, spending daylight hours resting quietly in sheltered crevices, often piled together in small groups with other nurse sharks in a display of surprising, gentle sociability, before becoming considerably more active once night finally falls. Rather than chasing down fast-moving prey the way our great white does, a nurse shark instead relies on powerful, specialized suction feeding, rapidly expanding her own mouth cavity to create a sudden, forceful vacuum capable of drawing prey directly into her mouth from a surprising distance away, an ambush technique perfectly suited to hunting slower-moving prey like crustaceans, mollusks, and small fish hidden among rocks and coral. That same suction feeding mechanism has been measured by researchers as one of the most powerful examples of its kind among any fish species studied so far, generating enough force to extract a reluctant octopus from deep within a rocky crevice, or to draw a startled fish out from beneath a ledge before it has any real chance to react or escape. Researchers measuring this same suction force directly in laboratory conditions found nurse sharks capable of generating pressure differentials considerably exceeding what most other similarly sized fish can produce, the entire feeding strike completed in a fraction of a second, fast enough that slow-motion video remains the only practical way to observe the full sequence clearly. It's a genuinely impressive piece of natural engineering achieved by an animal otherwise so committed to stillness and patience that watching her feed represents one of the only moments her whole body truly demonstrates the kind of explosive capability she otherwise keeps so thoroughly, quietly in reserve. Nurse sharks also play a genuinely useful, if easily overlooked, role in maintaining the health of the reef ecosystems they call home, their steady, patient foraging helping control populations of certain invertebrates that might otherwise overwhelm delicate coral structures if left entirely unchecked. Researchers studying reef health across the Caribbean and wider tropical Atlantic have found nurse shark abundance correlating positively with several broader measures of overall reef ecosystem health. One more quiet example of how even a relatively docile, unassuming bottom dweller can carry genuine ecological weight far beyond what her calm, sedentary daily routine might otherwise suggest. Come the warmer months of summer, nurse sharks along parts of the Florida coastline gather in surprisingly large mating aggregations, dozens of individuals converging on the very same shallow, familiar stretch of water year after year. A seasonal event researchers have studied closely enough to document individual sharks returning reliably to the exact same mating grounds across multiple consecutive seasons. Guided by some combination of memory and instinct not entirely unlike the natal homing behavior we've discussed with several other species tonight. That same reliable, predictable gathering has made nurse sharks along this particular stretch of coastline among the most thoroughly studied sharks anywhere in the world when it comes to understanding the fine details of shark courtship and mating behavior. Researchers documenting the same handful of individually recognized sharks returning year after year, their own particular scars and markings allowing patient observers to build up genuinely detailed, decades-long life histories for individual animals in a way that remains considerably more difficult to achieve for species that never gather so predictably in one accessible, well-studied location. Trailing from either side of her mouth, a pair of sensitive baubles, small whisker-like projections, help her locate prey buried beneath sand or tucked into narrow rocky crevices, tasting and feeling her way carefully across the seafloor in the darkness, guided as much by touch and taste as by sight alone. Combined with her calm, generally docile temperament around divers, that same patient, deliberate style of hunting has made the nurse shark one of the more approachable and widely studied shark species found anywhere on shallow tropical and subtropical reefs. Let's drift now toward the mouth of a wide, muddy river, where fresh water gradually mixes with the sea, a boundary many fish find genuinely impossible to cross, yet one a particular shark navigates with remarkable, quiet ease. This is a bull shark, and she carries a genuinely rare physiological trick among sharks, a specialized set of internal organs capable of carefully regulating the salt concentration within her own body, allowing her to move between saltwater and freshwater with an ease almost no other shark species can match. Bull sharks have been documented well over 1,000 kilometers up the Amazon River, and similarly far inland along the Mississippi, the Ganges, and the Zambezi, patrolling murky, silt-heavy water that looks, at a glance, nothing at all like the clear, open ocean we usually associate with sharks. Researchers studying this same remarkable physiological flexibility have found that bull shark pups are actually born in freshwater or brackish river systems specifically, their mothers seeking out these same sheltered, landlocked nursery grounds precisely because they offer young pups considerably greater protection from larger ocean-dwelling predators, including other bull sharks, than the open sea ever could. Only as they mature do young bull sharks gradually make their way back down toward the coast and out into fully marine water, a genuinely unusual life history among sharks that mirrors, in its own way, the freshwater to saltwater journey certain fish species like salmon undertake, only running in the opposite direction entirely. A series of encounters along the New Jersey shoreline in the summer of 1916, including one that occurred well upstream in a freshwater creek far from any ocean beach, is widely believed by many researchers to have involved a bull shark specifically, precisely because of her documented willingness to travel so far into freshwater environments that other shark species would never attempt. That same series of events, unusual and alarming enough at the time to draw national attention, is often credited as a significant early influence on the broader cultural anxiety surrounding sharks that would, decades later, find its most famous expression in the same blockbuster film we'll discuss again a little later tonight. Beyond her unusual freshwater tolerance, the bull shark also plays a genuinely significant ecological role within the river and estuary systems she frequents, helping regulate populations of fish that might otherwise overwhelm these same sensitive, nutrient-rich environments if left entirely unchecked by any significant predator. Researchers studying the Caribbean's mangrove-lined estuaries have found bull shark presence closely correlated with overall ecosystem stability, one more example of a shark species whose ecological importance reaches considerably further inland than most people would ever think to associate with any ocean predator at all. That same freshwater tolerance, combined with a stocky, powerful build and a broad, blunt snout, has made the bull shark responsible for a disproportionate number of documented encounters with people compared to many other species, not necessarily because she's especially more aggressive by nature, but simply because her preferred habitat, murky, shallow coastal water and river mouths, overlaps so much more directly with where people themselves tend to swim, fish, and wade compared to the open ocean many other shark species prefer instead. Researchers have also recorded bull sharks carrying notably higher levels of testosterone than nearly any other animal yet studied, a detail that has fueled considerable popular speculation about her reputation, though researchers caution that hormone levels alone rarely explain behavior as simply as popular accounts sometimes suggest. If your thoughts have started to blur together comfortably by now, let them. There's no need to keep the different rivers, reefs, and depths we visited tonight neatly sorted in your mind. They can blend together freely, the way fresh water and salt water blend together at the very mouth of this same wide river, softening into one another until the boundary barely matters at all. Let's drift back now toward a shallow, sandy patch near the same reef, where two more patient, ground-dwelling relatives round out this particular stretch of our journey. A zebra shark rests quietly along the sand, her juvenile stripes, which give the species its common name, already fading into the pattern of dark spots she'll carry for the whole of her adult life, feeding steadily on small invertebrates buried in the sediment around her, using much the same suction-based approach we discussed with the nurse shark a little earlier tonight. Zebra sharks lay their own eggs in tough, dark, rectangular cases equipped with fine, curling tendrils at each corner, anchoring them securely to coral or rocky substrate for an incubation period that can stretch past 4 months before a fully formed pup, already patterned with the same juvenile stripes as her mother once carried, finally emerges ready to fend for herself. Aquariums around the world have had particular success breeding zebra sharks in managed care, making her one of the better understood species when it comes to the fine details of shark embryonic development, each stage documented carefully through the translucent wall of her own protective egg case. That same success in managed care has made the zebra shark a particularly valuable species for conservation breeding programs aimed at eventually restocking wild populations in regions where overfishing has significantly reduced her numbers. Several aquariums now coordinating carefully across international boundaries to share genetic diversity among captive breeding populations, a patient, multi-generational project not unlike the careful breeding programs we discussed with the Arabian leopard. On another quiet evening much like this one, nearby, an angel shark lies almost entirely buried beneath a thin layer of sand, her flattened body and broad, wing-like pectoral fins giving her an appearance closer to a ray than to any of the more familiar torpedo-shaped sharks we've followed so far tonight. She waits here, motionless, sometimes for hours at a stretch, until an unsuspecting fish passes directly overhead, at which point she strikes upward with startling speed, a sudden, explosive movement entirely at odds with the patient stillness she otherwise maintains. Several angel shark species around the world have become critically endangered in recent decades, their preference for shallow, coastal sandy seafloor placing them directly in the path of bottom-trawling fishing gear, a pattern of vulnerability we'll return to more fully a little later tonight. The Canary Islands have, in recent years, emerged as one of the last remaining strongholds for the critically endangered angel shark found across the eastern Atlantic. Local conservation programs working closely with recreational divers to document individual sightings and better understand a population that had, for decades, been assumed largely lost across most of her once considerably wider historic range. That same collaborative approach, ordinary divers contributing careful, patient observation alongside professional researchers, has become an increasingly important tool for studying rare, hard-to-track species precisely like this one, where traditional research funding alone could never hope to cover the sheer number of patient hours needed to properly understand a population scattered so thinly across such a wide stretch of coastline. Tucked into a nearby crevice, a small, slender pajama shark rests quietly through the daylight hours, her body marked with distinct dark stripes running the length of her pale body, giving her an appearance not unlike old-fashioned nightwear, and earning her that same memorable, faintly whimsical common name among divers along the South African coastline she calls home. Along the kelp forests of South Africa's southern coastline, the pajama shark plays a genuinely important ecological role as a mid-level predator, feeding on small fish, squid, and crustaceans while herself remaining vulnerable to considerably larger sharks patrolling the same waters, including, on occasion, the great white we began this whole journey with much earlier tonight. Researchers studying this same kelp forest ecosystem have found pajama shark abundance closely tied to overall ecosystem health, one small link in an intricate chain connecting the smallest reef fish all the way up to the largest apex predators sharing the same rich, temperate coastal water. Along with dozens of other similarly small, patterned cat sharks found scattered across temperate and tropical reefs worldwide, she represents one of the most numerous and diverse branches of the entire shark family tree, small, unassuming, bottom-dwelling species that rarely attract the same public fascination as our great white, yet collectively make up a considerable share of all known shark species combined. A close relative, the Port Jackson shark, carries a distinctly blunt, pig-like snout and unusual ridged teeth built specifically for crushing the shells of sea urchins and mollusks, and, like the horned shark we'll discuss shortly, lays her own eggs in that same distinctive corkscrew-shaped case, wedged carefully into a rocky crevice for safekeeping. Port Jackson sharks undertake their own modest, if consistent, seasonal migration each year, moving from deeper offshore water into the same shallow, rocky reefs along the southern Australian coastline to breed, often returning to the very same specific reef where they themselves originally hatched, a smaller-scale echo of the same natal homing instinct we discussed with our great white and, on another quiet evening much like this one, with certain sea turtles as well. Researchers tagging individual Port Jackson sharks across successive breeding seasons have confirmed this same pattern repeating reliably year after year, individual sharks demonstrating a genuinely precise, patient loyalty to one particular stretch of familiar, remembered reef. Let's move now into warm, open coastal water, where a shark carrying a distinctive pattern of dark, vertical stripes along her flanks cruises steadily forward, unhurried, scanning the water around her with a patience that belies just how varied her own diet actually happens to be. However heavy your eyes have become by now, there's nothing here that needs your full attention. Let your breathing continue its own slow rhythm, in and out, exactly as it wants to, while this same quiet water carries us both a little further into the night. The water here feels open and unstructured compared to the sheltered reef we just left behind, a wide, featureless expanse where almost anything might drift past at any moment, exactly the kind of unpredictable environment this next shark has built her entire feeding strategy around embracing rather than avoiding. This is a tiger shark, named for those same dark, tiger-like stripes running down her sides, markings that tend to fade considerably as she grows older, often becoming barely visible at all on a fully mature adult. Among researchers who study shark diets closely, the tiger shark has earned a genuinely memorable, if slightly unflattering, nickname, the garbage can of the sea. Where many shark species specialize fairly narrowly in one particular kind of prey, a tiger shark's stomach contents, examined across countless research studies, have turned up an almost bewildering variety of items, fish of every size and shape, seabirds resting on the surface, smaller sharks, sea snakes, and, notably, sea turtles, which have powerful, uniquely serrated teeth are specifically well-suited to crack directly through even the toughest shell. Not far from where our tiger shark hunts, a considerably sleeker, more streamlined relative moves through open, deeper water with a very different temperament entirely. The silky shark, named for the unusually smooth texture of her own skin compared to the coarser, more sandpaper-like feel of many other species, tends to travel in loose, shifting groups across open ocean, often found near floating debris or drifting seaweed mats where small fish naturally gather for shelter. Researchers studying silky shark aggregations around floating debris have found these same gatherings can number in the dozens, individuals of varying sizes and ages tolerating close proximity in a way that seems to serve mutual benefit, extra sets of senses collectively watching for both prey and potential danger across a shared, temporary gathering point in otherwise empty open water. That same tendency to congregate predictably around floating objects, well understood by commercial fishing fleets deploying artificial fish aggregating devices specifically to attract commercially valuable tuna, has unfortunately made the silky shark one of the most frequently caught bycatch species in industrial tuna fisheries worldwide. Drawn in incidentally by the very same floating structures deployed to attract fish she has no actual involvement with catching herself. In response, several major tuna fishing fleets have begun adopting modified aggregating device designs specifically intended to reduce shark bycatch, along with mandatory release protocols requiring crews to carefully free any silky shark caught incidentally rather than retaining her, changes driven partly by regulation and partly by growing consumer demand for tuna certified as caught using genuinely shark-safe methods. Early results from fleets that have adopted these same practices suggest meaningful reductions in silky shark mortality are achievable without significantly affecting the actual tuna catch those same vessels set out to secure in the first place. There's a version of that same careful, incremental progress worth carrying with you into your own rest tonight too. Small, consistent adjustments, made patiently and repeated often enough, tend to add up to considerably more than any single dramatic effort ever could. Sleep works the same quiet way, arriving not through force or struggle, but through simply continuing to let go, breath by breath, exactly as you're already doing. Whatever remains of tonight's journey, let it arrive at its own pace. There's nothing left to prepare for, nothing left to anticipate, only this same steady, patient unfolding, continuing gently on toward whatever quiet close it's already moving steadily toward. Let your own mind rest easy in that same quiet certainty. Whatever needs to happen tonight, whether that's simply continuing to listen, or finally drifting fully off to sleep, will happen exactly when it's ready to, without any effort required from you at all. There's nothing left to decide, nothing left to work out. Just this same steady, patient current, carrying everything gently forward, exactly as it always has. Rest here, in this same steady current, for as long as you need to. Let it carry you the rest of the way, gently, without needing anything more from you at all. Rest, simply rest. Tiger sharks themselves carry one further genuinely striking reproductive trait worth pausing on. A single litter can include anywhere from 10 to more than 80 pups, an unusually large number compared to most of the sharks we've discussed so far tonight, born fully independent and immediately capable of hunting on their own, much like the sand tiger and other live-bearing species we'll discuss shortly. That same large litter size may help offset the considerable natural mortality young tiger shark pups face during their especially vulnerable first year of life, when they remain small enough to fall prey themselves to larger sharks, including, on occasion, other tiger sharks entirely unrelated to their own particular litter. In native Hawaiian culture, the tiger shark held a particularly significant and genuinely complicated place, regarded both as a powerful aumakua capable of protecting families who honored her properly, and, simultaneously, as a legitimate source of real danger deserving careful, practical respect, two ideas that coexisted comfortably within the same tradition without any particular contradiction. Modern researchers studying tiger shark movements around the Hawaiian Islands have found her numbers increase noticeably during the same summer months when Hawaiian monk seal pups, an endangered species found nowhere else on Earth, are most vulnerable, adding a genuinely difficult modern conservation puzzle to an already old and complicated relationship between this particular shark and the people who have shared these same island waters with her for countless generations. That same willingness to eat almost anything has occasionally produced genuinely strange discoveries too: license plates, tires, and other unmistakably human debris turning up inside the stomachs of tiger sharks examined by researchers over the decades, a byproduct of an animal whose feeding strategy essentially amounts to investigating almost anything that might conceivably be food, rather than specializing narrowly the way many of her more particular relatives choose to do instead. One particularly memorable case involved a tiger shark caught off the coast of Australia found to have swallowed an entire, undetonated explosive device, apparently mistaken for ordinary floating debris, a discovery that required considerable additional caution from the researchers involved in the subsequent examination. Cases like this one, however unusual, have contributed to the tiger shark's enduring reputation as the single least discriminating eater among all sharks studied so far, an animal seemingly willing to at least investigate almost anything that crosses her path, whether or not it ultimately proves to be genuinely edible at all. Researchers studying this same unusual, indiscriminate feeding strategy have suggested it may actually represent a genuinely sound survival advantage for an animal spending so much of its life patrolling open, unpredictable coastal water where reliable prey can be scarce and inconsistent from one season to the next. Rather than risk starvation waiting for one particular, preferred food source to appear, a tiger shark's willingness to investigate nearly anything drifting past means she rarely goes hungry for long, even in stretches of ocean that might leave a more specialized predator struggling considerably. Tiger sharks undertake substantial migrations of their own too, tracked by satellite tag moving between winter breeding grounds in warm, tropical water and considerably richer summer feeding grounds much further from the equator, timing their movements with a precision that suggests an animal keenly attuned to the broader seasonal rhythms of the entire ocean around her, even while her own reputation for opportunistic, almost indiscriminate feeding might suggest otherwise. Some of the most detailed tracking data collected on tiger sharks has come from tagging efforts around Hawaii and the wider Pacific, where researchers have documented individual sharks following remarkably consistent seasonal routes year after year, arriving at particular atolls just as seabird colonies there begin fledging their own young. A seasonal feast of inexperienced young birds first taking to open water that tiger sharks appear to anticipate with striking, well-timed precision. That same research program has continued for well over 2 decades now, one of the longest-running satellite tagging efforts focused on any single shark species anywhere in the world, generating a dataset detailed enough to reveal individual personality differences among tracked sharks, some consistently more exploratory in their movements year after year, others showing a strong, repeated preference for staying close to a single familiar stretch of reef regardless of the season, a level of individual behavioral consistency researchers hadn't fully appreciated before such long-term tracking became possible. That same long-running dataset has also allowed researchers to observe how individual tiger sharks respond to major environmental disruptions. Several tracked sharks documented adjusting their usual seasonal routes measurably following significant coral bleaching events or unusually severe storms. A level of behavioral flexibility that offers cautious hope for how this particular species might continue adapting to the broader environmental changes still unfolding across the ocean she calls home. That same adaptability echoes something we've circled back to again and again across the whole of tonight's journey. An ancient family of animals whose greatest strength has never been raw power or aggression, but rather a quiet, patient willingness to adjust, to reroute, to simply keep going in whatever direction circumstances require, exactly the way water itself finds its own path around any obstacle placed in front of it, without ever needing to force its way through directly at all. Before we descend into the permanent darkness of the deep sea, it's worth pausing along one more shallow, sunlit reef, where an entirely different hunting philosophy plays out among a family of sharks built almost entirely around patience and disguise. The tasseled wobbegong rests motionlessly across the seafloor, her entire body fringed with an elaborate pattern of skin flaps and mottled coloring that renders her almost perfectly indistinguishable from the surrounding rock and coral rubble. Rather than actively pursuing prey the way our tiger shark does, a wobbegong simply waits, sometimes for many hours at a stretch, until an unsuspecting fish swims close enough to trigger a sudden, explosive strike from a mouth that had, moments earlier, appeared to be nothing more than an unremarkable patch of reef. That same patient stillness, held for hours without complaint, might be worth borrowing for yourself right now too, if any small part of you is still holding onto tension anywhere at all. Let it go, the way the wobbegong lets go of any urgency at all, simply waiting, simply resting, trusting that whatever needs to happen will happen in its own good time. A close relative found across shallow reef flats in Australia and New Guinea takes patience even further. The epaulet shark, named for a distinctive dark spot behind each pectoral fin resembling a military shoulder ornament, has developed a genuinely remarkable ability to survive in tide pools that become nearly cut off from the ocean and severely depleted of oxygen during low tide. Wabgongs themselves have grown so thoroughly specialized toward this same camouflage-based ambush strategy that several species have developed small, fleshy growths called dermal lobes scattered across their jaw and snout, mimicking the exact texture and movement of drifting algae in current, an extra layer of disguise added directly on top of an already remarkably effective mottled coloring. Divers who spend considerable time around reefs where wabgongs are common often describe developing an almost second sense for spotting them eventually, learning to notice the subtle, telltale outline of a shark's actual eye or gill slit hidden somewhere within what otherwise looks like nothing more than an ordinary patch of coral rubble. Despite her generally calm, sedentary nature, a wabegong disturbed by an unwary diver placing a hand or foot too close can deliver a surprisingly forceful defensive bite, her jaw equipped with long, backward curving teeth designed to grip firmly onto struggling prey rather than release quickly, a detail worth remembering for anyone exploring a reef where these same beautifully camouflaged sharks might be resting, entirely unnoticed, only a short distance away. Rather than simply dying under conditions that would quickly overwhelm most other fish, an epaulet shark can slow her own brain activity and shut down non-essential bodily functions temporarily, waiting patiently through hours of dangerously low oxygen until the rising tide finally returns fresh, oxygen-rich water to her small, isolated pool. When conditions call for it, she'll even use her own muscular pectoral and pelvic fins to walk, in a slow, deliberate crawl, across exposed reef flats between one isolated tide pool and another, a genuinely unusual mode of locomotion for an animal we'd otherwise think of purely as a swimmer. Researchers studying this remarkable oxygen tolerance have found the epaulet shark's brain can survive conditions that would cause irreversible damage within minutes in most other vertebrate animals, quietly rerouting limited oxygen toward only the most essential neural functions until conditions improve. That same resilience has made her a genuinely valuable subject for medical researchers studying stroke and oxygen deprivation more broadly in human patients, a small, patient reef dweller offering unexpected insight into one of modern medicine's more persistently difficult challenges. Let's leave the warm, sunlit water behind us now entirely, and descend instead into the deep sea's permanent darkness, where an entirely different collection of shark species has adapted to a world with no natural light, crushing pressure, and near-freezing water temperatures that would overwhelm nearly anything living closer to the surface. The transition to this depth happens gradually but unmistakably, the last traces of blue light fading first to violet, then to complete, absolute black, a darkness so total that any color at all becomes essentially meaningless this far down. Pressure builds steadily too, an invisible, constant weight that would crush an unprotected human body almost instantly, yet poses no particular difficulty at all for the creatures that have called this same crushing darkness home for millions of years. Down here, a genuinely strange-looking shark drifts slowly through the darkness, its skin an unusual, almost translucent shade of pink, its jaw capable of shooting forward with startling speed to snatch prey drifting past. This is a goblin shark, a species so distinct from every other living shark that researchers consider it the sole surviving member of a lineage stretching back more than 125 million years, a genuine living fossil drifting through water so deep that almost nothing about its own strange, ancient appearance has needed to change in all that time. The goblin shark's own unusual pink coloring, so different from the grays and browns we've encountered across most of tonight's journey, comes from blood vessels visible directly through her own remarkably translucent skin, rather than from any pigment at all, a detail that only becomes visible once a specimen is finally brought up from the deep, dark water she calls home. Since almost no natural light ever reaches her at those depths to reveal that same coloring under ordinary circumstances. First formally described by Western science in the late 19th century, following a chance encounter with a Japanese fisherman who brought a specimen to the attention of a visiting researcher, the goblin shark remains, even now, one of the rarest sharks to be observed alive in its own natural deep-sea habitat. Most scientific understanding of the species still built from occasional specimens recovered from fishing nets set at unusually great depth. Goblin sharks have been documented at depths exceeding 1,200 meters in certain regions, though occasional individuals have also been encountered in considerably shallower water, particularly around underwater canyons where deep, cold water rises unusually close to the surface, a reminder that the sharp boundary we sometimes imagine between shallow and deep ocean life is, in practice, considerably more porous and variable than any single fixed depth could ever fully capture. That same protrusible jaw represents one of the most unusual feeding mechanisms found anywhere among sharks, capable of extending forward with remarkable speed, sometimes described by researchers as resembling a slingshot released suddenly from tension, snapping shut around prey before quickly retracting back into its normal resting position. Combined with a long, flattened, blade-like snout studded with the same electricity-sensing ampullae we discussed with our great white much earlier tonight, the goblin shark hunts almost entirely by sensing the faint electrical signals of prey hidden in complete darkness, her strange, pale skin and rarely seen appearance having earned her something of a fearsome reputation among people who've only ever encountered photographs. Despite posing no realistic danger at all to anything beyond the small fish and crustaceans she quietly hunts in the permanent dark. Sharing this same deep, ancient darkness, a considerably larger relative carries her own quiet claim to living fossil status. The blunt-nosed six-gill shark retains 6 gill slits along each side of her head, rather than the 5 found on our great white and the overwhelming majority of modern shark species, a trait shared with only a small handful of other deep-water sharks and considered by researchers a genuinely primitive holdover from a much earlier stage in shark evolution, predating the more common 5-gill arrangement by tens of millions of years. Growing to lengths exceeding 5 meters, the 6-gill spends most of daylight hours resting in deep, cold water, rising up through the water column each night to feed in a pattern called vertical migration, one shared broadly across countless deep-sea species that would otherwise be forced to endure the crushing pressure of extreme depth around the clock without ever once returning toward richer, shallower feeding grounds under cover of darkness. If your own body feels like it's sinking a little deeper into stillness right now, let it. There's nowhere else for either of us to be, and nothing more required than simply continuing to rest here, together, in this same deep, quiet dark. Researchers studying the six-gill zone vertical migration have tracked individuals rising from depths exceeding 600 meters up to within 100 meters of the surface each night, an enormous daily commute undertaken purely in darkness, invisible to anyone at the surface, repeated faithfully night after night across a lifespan researchers believe may stretch past 80 years for the largest, oldest individuals studied so far. That same enormous, nightly vertical journey requires genuinely remarkable physiological tolerance for the significant pressure changes involved. The six-gill zone body adjusted across countless generations to handle that same daily transition smoothly, unlike a human diver, for whom moving between those same depths too quickly would pose serious, potentially fatal risk. It stands as one more quiet example of how thoroughly the ordinary rules governing our own experience of depth and pressure simply don't apply to an animal that has spent tens of millions of years patiently refining her own particular solution to the very same challenge. Let your own body feel just as untroubled by any pressure or tension right now, whatever small aches or worries the day may have left behind. They can simply dissolve now, the way pressure itself dissolves for this same ancient shark, rising calmly through water that would overwhelm nearly anything else, entirely unbothered, entirely at ease. Whatever weight you carried into tonight can stay behind now too, left quietly somewhere far above us, exactly the way the six-gill leaves behind the crushing pressure of her own deepest daytime resting place each night, rising instead toward something lighter, softer, considerably easier to simply drift through. There's nothing left to carry from here. Only this same soft, weightless drift, continuing gently onward through the last of the night's deep, patient dark. Rest here, in this same weightless quiet, for as long as you need to. Let the last of any remaining tension dissolve now too, sinking gently away into the same deep, patient dark surrounding us. Elsewhere in these same cold, dark depths, a considerably larger shark moves at a genuinely glacial pace, and carries perhaps the most remarkable secret of any animal we've met so far tonight. This is a Greenland shark, believed, based on careful radiocarbon dating of proteins within its own eye lens, to be the longest-lived vertebrate animal known anywhere on this planet, with some individuals estimated to live past 400 years, quite possibly older still. A Greenland shark alive today may have already been swimming through these same cold waters before many of the events we consider foundational to modern history had even taken place. That radiocarbon dating technique itself represents a genuinely clever piece of scientific detective work. The lens of a Greenland shark's eye grows in layers across its own lifetime, each layer forming during a particular period and never being replaced or broken down afterward, not unlike the growth rings of a tree. By carefully measuring specific radioactive isotopes within the very center of that lens, the oldest tissue present, researchers were able to establish a minimum age for several individuals examined, and the numbers that emerged surprised even the scientists conducting the research, pushing the upper estimate of this species' lifespan considerably beyond what anyone had previously assumed possible for any vertebrate animal at all. That landmark study, published in 2016, drew on decades of accumulated bycatch specimens gathered incidentally by fishing vessels across the North Atlantic, most of them already dead by the time researchers were able to examine them properly, a reminder that even a genuinely groundbreaking scientific discovery can sometimes emerge from patiently sorting through years of otherwise unremarkable, incidental data, waiting quietly for the right analytical technique and the right careful researcher to finally recognize its full significance. That same extraordinary longevity comes paired with an almost equally extraordinary slowness. A Greenland shark's metabolism runs at such a leisurely pace that researchers estimate she may grow barely a single centimeter each year, and doesn't reach full sexual maturity until somewhere around 150 years of age, an entire human lifetime spent, from her perspective, still patiently waiting to grow up. Her flesh, remarkably, contains high concentrations of a compound called trimethylamine oxide, which helps her cells withstand the crushing pressure of extreme depth, but which also renders her flesh mildly toxic if eaten fresh, a natural defense discovered the hard way by sled dogs in the Arctic that occasionally fell seriously ill after eating improperly prepared Greenland shark meat. That same toxic flesh has, over centuries, been carefully transformed into an actual delicacy in parts of Iceland, where a traditional dish called hakal involves fermenting and then drying Greenland shark meat across many weeks, a careful, patient process that breaks down the very same toxic compounds responsible for its natural defense, leaving behind a pungent, strongly flavored food considered by many visitors to be one of the more challenging traditional dishes they'll ever encounter, and treasured by many Icelanders as a genuine, hard-won taste of their own culinary heritage. That same fermentation process traditionally began by burying the shark meat beneath sand and gravel for several weeks, allowing natural fluids to drain away gradually, before finally hanging the meat to dry in the open air for months longer still, an entire preparation stretching across the better part of half a year before the dish is finally considered ready to eat. It stands as one more example of patience defining nearly everything connected to this particular animal, from her own remarkable 400-year lifespan, to the many months required simply to prepare her flesh safely enough for anyone to actually eat it at all. Modern food safety regulations have refined this same traditional process considerably. Most commercial hakal today prepared using carefully controlled fermentation vessels rather than simple buried pits, though the basic principle, and the considerable patience required, remains fundamentally unchanged from the method Icelandic communities have relied on for many generations, a small, quiet thread of continuity connecting modern Icelandic kitchens directly back to considerably older, harder centuries when this same patient preparation meant the difference between a valuable food source and a genuinely dangerous meal. Many Greenland sharks examined by researchers carry a further strange detail: a small, pale parasitic copepod often attached directly to one or both eyes, gradually damaging the shark's own eyesight over time. Remarkably, this doesn't appear to trouble the shark especially deeply, since her preferred deep, dark habitat offers so little natural light in the first place that keen eyesight was likely never especially critical to her own slow, patient way of finding a meal. Some researchers have gone so far as to suggest this same small, glowing parasite might actually benefit the Greenland shark in an unexpected way, its own faint bioluminescence potentially serving as a small, unintentional lure, drawing curious prey close enough to investigate before the shark strikes. Though this same theory remains genuinely difficult to confirm given how rarely researchers are able to observe live Greenland sharks hunting naturally in their own deep, dark habitat. Whether helpful, harmful, or simply neutral, that same small parasite has become almost as closely associated with the Greenland shark in the public imagination as her own remarkable longevity, two strange, quiet details combining to make her one of the more genuinely unusual animals we've encountered across the whole of tonight's journey. Let your own eyes rest now too, exactly as heavy and unbothered as this old, patient shark's own eyes have become across her many centuries of slow, deep living. There's nothing you need to see clearly right now. Only this same soft darkness, and the quiet, steady sound of a voice keeping you gentle company through it. One final deep-sea species deserves a moment of quiet attention too, considerably smaller than either the goblin shark or the Greenland shark, yet carrying a genuinely unusual hunting strategy entirely its own. The cookie-cutter shark, rarely reaching much longer than half a meter, uses its own unusually shaped, suction cup-like mouth to attach briefly to considerably larger animals, whales, dolphins, tuna, and, on rare documented occasions, even submarines and underwater cables, before rotating its own body and neatly removing a small, circular plug of flesh, leaving behind a distinctive, cookie-shaped wound that gives this small, otherwise unassuming shark its own memorable name. However heavy your own eyelids feel right now, let them stay closed. There's a whole ocean of quiet, patient darkness still ahead of us tonight, and none of it requires anything more from you than the same soft, steady breathing you're already managing so well. In slightly shallower, though still cool and often overlooked, water, the spiny dogfish rounds out this same deep water journey, a small, unassuming shark rarely exceeding a meter in length, yet historically one of the most heavily fished shark species anywhere in the world, harvested for generations across the North Atlantic and North Pacific alike for both food and, in earlier centuries, industrial oil. Named for a pair of mildly venomous spines positioned just ahead of each dorsal fin, used defensively against predators attempting to swallow her from above, the spiny dogfish also carries one of the longest confirmed gestation periods among sharks studied outside the deep sea itself, sometimes approaching 2 full years from conception to birth, a reminder that patient, unhurried reproduction extends well beyond only the most exotic deep-sea species we've discussed tonight. The frilled shark we discussed a little earlier tonight, alongside the six-gill and goblin sharks sharing this same deep, patient darkness, together represent some of the very oldest surviving lineages within the entire shark family tree, each one having branched away from other modern sharks tens of millions of years before our great white's own more recent lineage ever took shape. Studying these same ancient survivors offers researchers a genuinely valuable window into what the earliest sharks may have looked like and behaved like, distant ancestors whose fossils remain frustratingly rare, making these living, breathing, deep-dwelling relatives, some of the closest available approximations we have to actually observing that same ancient history unfolding directly in front of us. Researchers believe the cookie-cutter shark uses its own faint bioluminescent glow, produced along its pale underside, to help lure larger prey close enough for this brief, parasitic bite to succeed, its silhouette against the surface light above disguised except for one small, dark patch around its throat, which some researchers suspect may mimic the shape of a much smaller fish, drawing a larger predator in close enough to become the cookie cutter's own unwitting victim instead. It's a genuinely clever, if unsettling, strategy for an animal so small to successfully feed on creatures many, many times its own size, without ever needing to overpower or kill its considerably larger target at all. Marine biologists studying whale carcasses recovered decades after death have found small, circular cookie-cutter bite scars scattered across the skin of nearly every specimen examined, a quiet, permanent record of countless brief encounters with this same small, unassuming predator across an entire whale's long lifetime. Even large, powerful predators like orcas and great white sharks themselves have been documented carrying these same distinctive scars, a reminder that size alone offers no complete protection against every predator sharing the same wide, patient ocean. Even the way researchers first pieced together the cookie cutter's true feeding behavior makes for a genuinely interesting story in its own right. Scientists initially uncertain whether those same distinctive circular wounds came from a parasite, an unusually shaped disease, or some kind of external injury entirely, before careful examination of the shark's own unusual mouth and teeth finally confirmed she was, in fact, a genuine, active predator rather than any kind of passive parasite at all. Rest here a while in this same deep, permanent darkness, and consider just how differently this whole stretch of ocean solves the same basic problems we discussed with our great white and whale shark much earlier tonight. No sunlight to rely on for camouflage or hunting. Crushing pressure that would kill almost anything unprepared for it. And yet, across a genuine, ancient variety of shark species, each one has found its own quiet, patient way to not just survive here, but to thrive, for tens of millions of years, in a world most of us will never see with our own eyes at all. Let's stay here in the deep, permanent dark a while longer, where an entirely different survival strategy has quietly evolved among some of the smallest sharks in the entire ocean, one built not around size or speed at all, but around producing soft, controlled light of their own. This is a good, easy place to simply rest for a moment, in this same soft, quiet dark. There's nothing you need to picture perfectly, nothing you need to remember afterward. Just let the sound of this voice, and the slow, steady rhythm underneath it, hold you a little longer. It's a strange, quiet kind of world to imagine clearly, an entire community of animals that have never once seen a sunrise, navigating instead by whatever faint light they can produce themselves, or by senses entirely unrelated to sight at all. And yet even here, in the deepest, darkest reaches of the ocean, evolution has continued its same patient work of refinement, producing solutions every bit as elegant as anything we found near the sunlit surface much earlier tonight. The dwarf lantern shark, found in deep water off the coast of South America, is widely considered the smallest shark species known anywhere in the world, a fully grown adult barely exceeding 20 centimeters from nose to tail, small enough to rest comfortably across an open human hand. Scattered across her small body, specialized light-producing organs called photophores emit a soft, pale glow, used in a technique researchers call counterillumination. By matching the faint, scattered light filtering down from the surface far above, her own glowing underside helps erase the shadow her body would otherwise cast against that same background light, rendering her considerably harder for a predator lurking below to notice against the water's surface far overhead. Each individual photophore is built from a remarkably compact arrangement of light-producing cells, a lens-like structure to help direct and focus the light produced, and a layer of pigmented cells capable of adjusting exactly how much of that light actually escapes at any given moment, an entire miniature lighting system embedded directly into the shark's own skin. Researchers examining these structures under magnification have compared their basic design to a genuinely sophisticated piece of engineered optical equipment, remarkable enough on its own even before considering that the entire structure evolved gradually, through countless small refinements, rather than being designed deliberately by anyone at all. That same counterillumination trick requires genuinely precise calibration to work effectively at all. Too bright, and her own glow would stand out clearly against the darker water below her. Too dim, and her silhouette would remain plainly visible from beneath. Researchers studying these small, glowing sharks have found that many species can actually adjust the intensity of their own glow in real time, matching it carefully to the exact brightness of the water above them as it shifts throughout the day, an entirely automatic, physiological adjustment happening constantly and precisely without any conscious effort on the shark's own part at all. A close relative, the kite-fin shark, considerably larger than the dwarf lantern shark yet still modest in overall size, was confirmed only recently to be the largest known luminous vertebrate animal on the entire planet, her own softly glowing underside serving the very same purpose, a quiet, practical adaptation to a world where staying unseen matters considerably more than almost anything else. That confirmation, made through careful research examining specimens caught off the coast of New Zealand, surprised many researchers simply because of how large the kite-fin shark actually grows, well over a meter in length, considerably larger than nearly every other bioluminescent animal previously studied in detail. It served as a genuine reminder that even now, in an age of satellites and deep-sea submersibles, entirely new details about how large, relatively well-known animals actually work can still emerge from careful, patient laboratory examination. Beyond these two especially well-studied examples, researchers have documented dozens of additional lantern shark species scattered across deep water worldwide, each carrying its own particular pattern of photophores, some concentrated densely along the belly for straightforward counterillumination. Others arranged in more complex patterns along the flanks that researchers suspect may help individuals of the same species recognize one another in the permanent dark, a form of bioluminescent communication considerably more sophisticated than simple camouflage alone. Given how genuinely difficult these small, deep-dwelling sharks are to study directly, researchers suspect the true diversity of glowing shark species may still be considerably larger than currently documented, an entire hidden constellation of small, softly lit lives likely still awaiting proper scientific description somewhere in the deep, patient dark. Let your own eyes stay closed a little longer here too, resting in this same imagined dark, however heavy they've already become. There's nothing more this next stretch of the journey needs from you beyond simply continuing to rest, exactly where you already are. Even the velvet belly lantern shark, found scattered across the cooler waters of the eastern Atlantic and Mediterranean, carries a further, genuinely clever refinement of this same glowing defense: small, light-emitting spines along her dorsal fin capable of producing a brief, startling flash specifically when a predator's jaws make contact, a final, split-second defensive display deployed only in the most urgent, immediate moment of genuine danger. That same deep, dark world has shaped the sensory toolkit of nearly every shark species living there in broadly similar ways. A shark's lateral line, a subtle row of fluid-filled canals running the length of her body, detects the faintest vibrations and changes in water pressure, sensing the movement of another creature swimming nearby long before sight or smell would ever reveal its presence. Small openings called spiracles, positioned just behind her eyes on many species, allow water to be drawn in and passed across her gills even while she rests motionless on the seafloor, particularly useful for the many bottom-dwelling species we've met so far tonight. That same lateral line system, shared broadly across nearly all fish, works through tiny, specialized hair cells lining each fluid-filled canal, bending gently in response to even the smallest disturbance passing through the surrounding water. In the complete darkness of the deep sea, where eyesight offers little practical benefit at all, this same subtle, pressure-sensing system becomes considerably more important, allowing a shark to build up a genuinely detailed picture of everything moving nearby, entirely without ever needing to see it directly. Researchers have found this same lateral line sensitive enough to detect the faint pressure wave created by a single small fish swimming several body lengths away, information a shark's distributed nerve net can process quickly enough to distinguish between the struggling movement of injured, vulnerable prey and the steady, unremarkable movement of a healthy fish not worth pursuing at all. An entirely separate channel of information running alongside her electrical sense and her sense of smell. Each one adding its own quiet layer of detail to the fuller picture she carries of everything happening in the water around her. That same sensitivity to electrical fields we discussed earlier tonight with our great white and hammerhead has, in recent years, inspired a genuinely practical piece of modern technology designed specifically around gently discouraging sharks from approaching swimmers and divers. Certain devices now generate a mild, carefully calibrated electrical field intended to overwhelm and irritate a shark's own sensitive ampullae of Lorenzini without causing any lasting harm, encouraging her to simply swim elsewhere rather than continue investigating whatever produced that same uncomfortable sensation. Early testing of these devices has shown promising, if not entirely perfect, Results: one more example of researchers turning their own careful understanding of shark biology into practical tools intended to reduce conflict between sharks and the people who share the ocean alongside them. Independent testing conducted by university researchers across several different personal deterrent products has found considerable variation in actual effectiveness between different devices and different shark species. Some models showing a meaningful reduction in close approaches during controlled trials, others showing results barely distinguishable from no protection at all. That same variability underscores an important, easily overlooked point, that a shark's own sensory world, built around senses so different from our own, doesn't always respond in ways that translate neatly or predictably into simple, universal solutions, however well-intentioned the underlying engineering happens to be. Researchers continue refining these same devices year after year, testing new frequencies, new field strengths, and new deployment methods, in an ongoing, patient effort to develop something reliable enough to genuinely reduce risk without disturbing the wider ecosystem sharks themselves depend on so heavily. It's exactly the kind of slow, careful, iterative research that rarely produces a single dramatic breakthrough, progressing instead the way so much of the best science does, one modest, carefully tested improvement at a time. If you're still resting comfortably here with us, let your body sink just a little further still into whatever is holding it right now. There's only a little further left to drift tonight, and nothing at all required of you beyond continuing exactly as you already are, breathing slowly, resting easily, carried gently forward by this same unhurried voice. Even her skin carries its own quiet, remarkable engineering. Rather than the smooth scales you might picture on a bony fish, a shark's skin is covered instead in countless tiny, tooth-like structures called dermal denticles, each one shaped almost exactly like a miniature tooth, oriented carefully to reduce drag as she moves through the water. That same structure has, in recent decades, inspired swimsuit designers and even aircraft engineers, studying the precise, ridged texture of shark skin in hopes of reducing drag across surfaces built for entirely different purposes than swimming through open ocean. Beyond simply reducing drag, researchers have discovered that the particular ridged texture of shark skin also appears to actively discourage the growth of algae and barnacles that would otherwise accumulate steadily across her body, a natural antifouling property that has, more recently, inspired the development of specialized ship hull coatings and even certain hospital surfaces designed to discourage the buildup of harmful bacteria. An entirely unexpected medical application borrowed from a design that evolution originally refined purely for the sake of efficient swimming. Competitive swimwear manufacturers, in particular, spent considerable research effort attempting to replicate that same dentical pattern in synthetic fabric during the early 2000s, producing full-body suits that several elite swimmers credited with measurable improvements in their own times during major international competitions, before those same suits were eventually restricted by swimming's governing bodies, considered by many to have provided an unfair advantage borrowed a little too directly from 400 million years of careful, patient shark evolution. Sharks rarely travel entirely alone, in the strictest sense, even when hunting solitary. Small fish called remoras attach themselves to a shark's body using a specialized, suction cup-like disc formed from a modified dorsal fin, hitching a free ride across enormous distances while feeding on parasites, dead skin, and scraps left over from the shark's own meals. Rather than a burden, this relationship benefits the shark too. In a quiet, mutual arrangement, the remora effectively functioning as a small, mobile cleaning crew, keeping her skin free of the same parasites we discussed troubling the Greenland shark's own eyes a little earlier tonight. Similarly, small schooling fish called pilot fish often travel closely alongside larger sharks, sheltered from other predators by the shark's own intimidating presence, occasionally feeding on the same scraps a shark leaves behind after a successful hunt. There's something worth borrowing from that same quiet, easy companionship right now, if you're still awake enough to notice it. You don't have to carry the weight of staying alert through the rest of this story. Let it carry you instead, the way a remora lets a shark's own steady, patient movement do all of the work, asking nothing more than to simply stay close and let go. Several distinct remora species have evolved their own particular preferences for which larger animal they attach to, some favoring sharks specifically, others preferring sea turtles, rays, or even whales instead, each species subtly adapted to the particular swimming speed and body shape of its own preferred host. Researchers studying this same relationship have found remoras capable of detaching and reattaching to a different host entirely when the opportunity arises, suggesting a genuinely flexible, opportunistic relationship rather than any permanent, exclusive bond tying a specific remora to one particular shark for the whole of either animal's life. Some coastal fishing communities across the Indian Ocean and parts of East Africa have, for generations, actually put this same remora attachment behavior to practical use, tying a long line to a captured remora's own tail before releasing her back into open water, allowing her natural instinct to attach onto a passing sea turtle to do the work of locating and effectively capturing an animal that would otherwise be considerably harder to approach directly. That same old, resourceful fishing technique offers one more small, quiet example of how thoroughly people sharing the ocean with these animals have observed and learned to work alongside their natural behaviors, long before any formal marine biology existed to describe the same relationship in careful scientific terms. Sharks also demonstrate a genuine capacity for learning and memory that continues to surprise researchers studying their behavior closely. Experiments conducted in controlled settings have shown certain shark species capable of learning to navigate simple mazes, and of remembering specific visual cues associated with a food reward for many months afterward, challenging an older, considerably less accurate assumption that sharks operate purely on rigid, unthinking instinct. Some researchers studying social behavior among certain reef shark species have even documented individuals appearing to recognize specific human divers who regularly visit the same reef, approaching familiar faces with noticeably less caution than unfamiliar visitors, a small, quiet hint of genuine individual recognition in an animal so often assumed incapable of anything beyond simple, mechanical response. One particularly patient study involving lemon sharks found young individuals capable of retaining a learned association between a specific visual target and a food reward for well over a year without any additional reinforcement in between, a genuinely impressive feat of long-term memory for an animal so rarely credited with anything beyond the most basic instinctive behavior. That same capacity for learning likely serves her well across an entire lifetime spent navigating a constantly shifting ocean environment, allowing individual sharks to build up their own accumulated, personal knowledge of especially productive hunting grounds, safe resting spots, and reliable seasonal food sources, refined gradually across years of her own patient, individual experience. Lemon sharks have also been documented displaying a genuine capacity for social learning, younger, less experienced individuals apparently picking up certain foraging behaviors more quickly when given the opportunity to observe more experienced sharks demonstrating them first, rather than needing to work out the same solution entirely through their own independent trial and error. That same capacity for learning from others, however limited compared to what we'd recognize in considerably more social mammals, represents a genuinely significant finding for an animal so long assumed to operate in near total behavioral isolation from every other shark around her. Young lemon sharks also form loose, temporary social groups during their earliest years spent in shallow, sheltered nursery lagoons, a genuinely unexpected degree of sociability for animals popularly imagined as solitary from the very moment of birth. Researchers studying these same juvenile groupings have found individual sharks showing measurable preferences for particular companions, returning repeatedly to swim alongside the same specific individuals rather than associating entirely at random, a small, quiet hint of something resembling genuine social preference in an animal whose inner life remains, in so many ways, still largely a careful, patient mystery even to the researchers who've spent entire careers studying her closely. That same patient mystery extends across nearly every species we've followed through the whole of tonight's long, quiet journey. For every genuine discovery researchers have carefully documented, considerably more remains entirely unknown, tucked away in stretches of open ocean, permanent darkness, or shallow, sheltered lagoons still waiting for some future researcher, armed with patience and curiosity in equal measure, to finally notice and understand. Let's turn our attention now to something that varies more widely among sharks than almost any other single trait we've discussed so far tonight: the many different ways an individual shark's life can actually begin. However far away your own thoughts have already drifted, that's perfectly fine. Let this next quiet stretch of the journey simply wash over you, gently, the way water moves over a stone worn smooth by centuries of the very same slow, patient current. Some shark species, including many smaller bottom-dwelling varieties, lay eggs entirely outside their own body, each one enclosed in a tough, leathery case often called a mermaid's purse when it eventually washes ashore, anchored carefully to seaweed or rocks by long, curling tendrils until the developing pup inside is finally ready to emerge fully formed and independent. Other species, our great white and tiger shark among them, give birth to fully developed, live young instead, the pups developing for months inside their mother's body before finally being born ready to swim and hunt entirely on their own. Among egg-laying species, the horned shark has developed a genuinely distinctive solution to keeping her own eggs safe throughout their long incubation. Rather than a simple, flattened case, her egg carries a spiral, corkscrew-like shape, which she carefully wedges into a narrow crack between rocks shortly after laying it, using the egg's own unusual shape almost like a built-in screw thread to hold it securely in place against currents and curious predators for the many months her developing pup will need before finally being ready to hatch. Between these two broad strategies sits a genuinely wide range of variation researchers have carefully documented across different species. Some sharks retain fertilized eggs inside their own body without providing any additional nourishment beyond what the egg itself contains, a strategy called ovoviviparity, essentially giving live birth while still relying entirely on egg yolk rather than any direct connection to the mother for nourishment. Others develop something closer to a true placental connection, allowing nutrients to pass directly from mother to developing pup throughout gestation, a strategy considerably closer to how many mammals reproduce than most people would ever expect from an animal so often lumped together in popular imagination as one single, uniform kind of creature. The bonnet head, a smaller relative of the hammerheads we met a little earlier tonight, offers one of the clearest examples of this same placental strategy in action, her developing pups connected directly to her own bloodstream through a structure genuinely analogous to a mammal's own placenta, delivering nutrients steadily throughout a gestation period lasting several months. It stands as a striking example of convergent evolution, an entirely unrelated lineage arriving independently at a solution to nourishing developing young remarkably similar to the one mammals rely on, despite the bonnethead's own ancestry having diverged from anything resembling a mammal hundreds of millions of years earlier. Within that same live-bearing category, a genuinely striking variation occurs among sand tiger sharks, where multiple embryos develop simultaneously within each of the mother's two separate uterine chambers. Rather than sharing space peacefully, the largest, most developed embryo in each chamber will actually consume its smaller siblings before birth, a phenomenon researchers call intrauterine cannibalism, ensuring that only the strongest, most fully developed pup from each chamber ultimately survives to be born, already a capable, sizable hunter from the very moment of its own birth. Researchers who first documented this behavior found it almost by accident, noting that sand tiger sharks are typically born considerably larger and more developed than pups from related species carrying far more offspring per litter, a puzzle only fully explained once careful dissection revealed exactly what had been happening quietly within each uterine chamber throughout gestation. It remains one of the more genuinely striking examples of competition beginning before birth found anywhere in the animal kingdom, an entire life or death contest playing out invisibly, months before either surviving pup ever takes its first independent breath of seawater. Despite that same fierce prenatal competition, adult sand tiger sharks are widely considered among the most calm and approachable of all larger shark species, frequently kept in public aquariums specifically because of her generally placid temperament around divers, despite a mouthful of long, visibly protruding teeth that give her, at a glance, a considerably more fearsome appearance than her actual gentle disposition would ever suggest. It's a small, quiet reminder, echoed again and again throughout tonight's journey, of how often a shark's outward appearance tells us considerably less about her true nature than patient, careful observation eventually reveals. Let your own body rest a little heavier now too, wherever you happen to be lying. There's nothing left to hold on to, nothing left to figure out. Just this same slow, patient unfolding, and the quiet dark surrounding it. Perhaps most remarkable of all, researchers have documented genuine cases of parthenogenesis among certain hammerhead sharks kept in captivity, entirely isolated from any male of their own species for years at a time, nevertheless producing viable offspring through a rare form of asexual reproduction, the mother's own genetic material alone sufficient to produce a healthy, if genetically less diverse, pup. It's a genuinely rare biological trick, documented in only a small handful of shark species, and one that continues to surprise researchers each time it's confirmed in a new individual. That same phenomenon has since been documented in a handful of other shark species as well, each confirmed case adding weight to the idea that this ability may be considerably more widespread across the shark family than researchers originally assumed, simply rarely triggered under normal circumstances where a suitable mate remains readily available. It appears to function almost like a biological contingency plan, activated only when isolation leaves no other option, rather than any regular part of how these species typically choose to reproduce when circumstances allow for it. The very first confirmed case, discovered at a zoo in the United States, initially puzzled researchers considerably, since the pup in question showed no genetic contribution whatsoever from any male, a finding so unexpected that the original research team spent considerable time ruling out every other possible explanation, including the remote possibility that the mother might have stored sperm from an earlier mating years prior, before finally confirming that genuine parthenogenesis was the only explanation the evidence actually supported. That same careful, patient process of elimination stands as a good example of how extraordinary scientific claims require correspondingly thorough verification before the wider research community can accept them with any real confidence. And when it comes to sheer patience, few animals anywhere can match the frilled shark, a deep-sea species believed to carry the longest gestation period of any vertebrate on this planet, quite possibly extending past 3.5 years from conception to eventual birth, an extraordinarily long, unhurried wait even by the patient standards this whole ancient family of animals has demonstrated again and again throughout tonight's journey. Set side by side, the range of gestation periods across the sharks we've followed tonight offers its own quiet lesson in patience. A bonnethead might carry her pups for only 4 or 5 months. A great white carries hers for well over a year. A spiny dogfish waits nearly 2 full years. And a frilled shark waits longer still, well past 3 years, longer than it takes many trees to produce their very first fruit. Whatever the exact number, not one of these species has ever needed to rush the process, each one trusting instead in whatever span of time its own particular biology requires, entirely unconcerned with any calendar beyond its own patient, internal one. The frilled shark herself carries an appearance almost as unusual as her remarkable gestation period, an elongated, eel-like body quite unlike the more familiar torpedo shape we associate with our great white, and rows of small, needle-like teeth arranged in a pattern some researchers have compared to a trap designed specifically to prevent softer-bodied prey like squid from ever working their way back out once caught. Rarely observed alive in her own natural deep-sea habitat, most of what researchers understand about the frilled shark comes from occasional specimens caught accidentally in deep trawling nets, each one offering a brief, precious glimpse into a species that otherwise spends its entire patient existence far beyond where most human observation could ever easily reach. Whatever strategy a particular species relies on, one detail remains remarkably consistent across nearly every shark we've discussed tonight. Unlike so many other animals across the wider natural world, a shark receives no parental care whatsoever once born or hatched. There is no nursing, no protective den, no patient teaching of hunting skills passed down from mother to young the way we discussed with leopard cubs on another quiet evening much like this one. A shark pup, from the very moment of its birth, must immediately fend entirely for itself, hunting its own first meal, avoiding its own first predator, guided by nothing beyond instinct built patiently into her design across 400 million years of refinement, a genuinely independent start to life shared by very few other animals of comparable complexity anywhere in the natural world. Courtship itself, preceding all of this, tends to be a considerably rougher affair than the word might initially suggest. Male sharks across numerous species will bite firmly onto a female's fin or flank during mating, holding her in place long enough to complete the act, a practice that has left many mature females carrying visible scarring across their own bodies. Researchers have found that female skin in several shark species has actually evolved to be measurably thicker than a male's of the same species, a direct physical adaptation to exactly this same rough courtship behavior, one more quiet example of how even reproduction itself, for sharks, has been shaped by countless generations of patient, incremental adjustment on both sides of the equation. There's one more kind of shark story worth sharing before we let this long night finish turning toward morning, about the complicated, often difficult relationship between people and this entire ancient family of animals. That relationship has always carried a genuine tension within it, a mixture of deep, practical respect among coastal communities who have shared the ocean with sharks for as long as human history has been recorded, alongside a considerably more exaggerated fear that has, in more recent decades, come to dominate much of popular imagination instead. If your body has settled somewhere comfortable enough that moving again feels entirely unnecessary right now, stay exactly there. Nothing in the rest of this story requires anything more from you than simply continuing to rest, letting this same steady voice carry the weight of the telling while you carry nothing at all. Few creatures have suffered quite so much from a single, enormously influential piece of fiction as the shark has. A blockbuster film released in the 1970s, built around a fictional, unusually aggressive great white terrorizing a small coastal town, left such a lasting cultural impression that shark attacks remain, to this day, dramatically overestimated in the public imagination compared to their genuine, statistical rarity. In reality, a person is considerably more likely to be seriously injured by a falling coconut, or by their own household toaster, than by a shark of any species, and the film's own original author spent much of his later life advocating actively for shark conservation, troubled by how thoroughly his own fictional creation had reshaped public perception of a genuinely vulnerable, ecologically vital animal. That single film's cultural influence extended even into scientific research funding and public policy, some historians of marine science pointing to a measurable surge in recreational shark hunting tournaments across the following decade, driven largely by a public suddenly eager to confront, in real life, the same fictional menace they'd watched dominate movie screens that same summer. Untangling exactly how much of modern shark conservation's uphill battle traces back to that single film remains difficult to measure precisely, though few researchers dispute that its cultural footprint reshaped public perception of sharks more thoroughly, and more lastingly, than any single piece of scientific research published before or since. That vulnerability is real and considerable. Many shark species reproduce slowly, some, as we discussed a little earlier tonight, taking well over a decade to reach sexual maturity and producing relatively few offspring across an entire lifetime, a reproductive strategy that leaves them genuinely poorly equipped to withstand sustained fishing pressure. Demand for shark fin soup, considered a delicacy in parts of the world, has driven a considerable portion of that pressure, with millions of sharks harvested annually largely for their fins alone, a practice that has pushed a significant number of shark species towards serious population decline, some now considered critically endangered across large portions of their historic range. In response, a growing number of countries and international bodies have introduced regulations specifically targeting this practice, requiring that any shark landed by a fishing vessel be brought ashore with its fins still naturally attached, a straightforward rule designed to prevent the specific practice of removing only a shark's fins at sea and discarding the remainder of its body, still alive in many documented cases, back into the ocean. Enforcement remains genuinely challenging across such a vast, difficult-to-monitor stretch of open ocean, though public awareness campaigns and shifting culinary attitudes in several key markets have, according to a number of recent studies, begun to measurably reduce overall demand in ways that would have seemed unlikely only a decade or two earlier. Beyond individual fishing regulations, a number of entire nations have gone considerably further, designating the whole of their own territorial waters as dedicated shark sanctuaries, banning commercial shark fishing outright across enormous stretches of ocean. Palau became one of the earliest nations to take this step, followed since by a growing number of Pacific Island nations and several other coastal countries around the world, each one betting, in effect, that a living, swimming shark holds greater long-term value, both ecologically and economically through tourism, than the same animal would ever provide if harvested once and sold. Palau's own decision, made official in 2009, protected an area of ocean roughly the size of France, an ambitious commitment for a nation with a comparatively small population and modest government budget, driven substantially by clear economic data showing shark-focused dive tourism already generating a meaningful share of the country's entire economy each year. That same pioneering example has since been studied closely by numerous other coastal nations considering similar protections of their own, a genuine, replicable model demonstrating that ambitious ocean conservation and practical economic self-interest can, under the right circumstances, point in exactly the same patient, sustainable direction. Similar large-scale sanctuaries have since been established across the Maldives, the Bahamas, French Polynesia, and a growing list of other nations, each one adding another protected stretch of ocean to a slowly expanding, if still incomplete, patchwork of genuine refuge for sharks navigating an ocean that, in so many other places, still offers them very little real protection at all. That same slow, patient expansion, one nation, one protected stretch of coastline at a time, mirrors almost exactly the pace at which everything else in tonight's story has unfolded. Nothing about this ancient family of animals has ever rushed toward anything, and perhaps that's a fitting note to rest on now too, as we finally turn back toward where the whole of this long night first began. Let your own body settle now, fully and completely, into whatever quiet stillness has been gathering around you this entire time. There's nothing left to accomplish tonight, nothing left to understand more thoroughly. Only this same soft, patient drift, carrying both us and this whole ancient story gently toward its own quiet close. Whatever small tension remains anywhere in your body, in your shoulders, your jaw, the space between your eyes, let it soften now too, one last time, the way everything else tonight has softened, slowly, patiently, without any need to hurry toward it. There is nothing left to hold on to now, nothing left to carry forward except this same quiet, unhurried rest, settling deeper with every passing moment. Let yourself rest here fully, for as long as you need to, as we finally turn together toward morning. Whatever the rest of tonight holds, it will arrive gently, exactly the way morning always does, without ever needing to be rushed toward at all. Rest now, fully, completely, unhurried.